agriculture sector is currently engaging the largest proportion of labor force in most African countries, with the continental average between 44 to 60%. The sector is, however, besieged with different constraints from time to time. And this is being said just to underscore the importance and the need to make it more productive. I'm beginning to see a brighter part of Africa's agriculture story, following many reflections on where we were 4 decades ago and the considerable progress we have made as of now. This is due to the unrelenting efforts of our leaders, the science, the civil society organization, the academia, the international research and development organizations receive and keeps receiving from our development partners, such as ADB, which is present here with us today. The whole institution is here because the leader is here with us. I also commend the African leaders for the political will demonstrated in enacting the CAADP framework and Agenda 2060, a big milestone to define the kind of future we want for our agriculture and how to achieve it. The Malabo Declaration, Agenda 2060, the Science Agenda for Africa Agriculture, that's S3A, and many more have contributed to where we are today as a continent. Despite the progress made, I reckon that our agriculture is yet to attain the level of development we truly deserve. The long-standing constraint of the yield gap with most commodities are due to the unavailability of advanced technologies, or even when available, poor access and lack of resources to procure the needed input poses a challenge. Technology generation is a multi-dimensional issue, and it will require a holistic approach to have a sound response. The innovation systems approach has been proven to deliver good outcomes in terms of fostering effective technology demand, technology generation and response to felt needs, and operation in a commercial mode. Although innovation platforms and other multi-stakeholder approaches are growing in acceptance, the negative effects even though its contribution to global emission is very low. Evidently, the West African sub-region is facing very negative effects. Recent data suggests increasing temperatures and rise in sea levels, changing precipitation patterns, and the possibility of more extreme weather that will threaten human health, safety, food security. The year 2100. The impact of climate change on rainfall is rather dichotomous. Over the past 15 years, there has been with zero carbon growth and zero carbon growth with a climate resilient future as we move to mainstream practices for utilizing this cutting edge technology.
need us to fix that table. You need us to fix that table.
Okay, welcome back, participants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I trust that you had a good time with the coffee break. So we will quickly get into the program and move very quickly. Dr. Oluajayi will make his presentation on climate smart digital technologies for agriculture and food security. And he will also talk about GCA, the central objective of GCA and GCA. So let's welcome Dr. Olu. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le modérateur. Mesdames, Messieurs, chers participants, soyez à la bienvenue ici. Et comme on dit ici au Ghana, on dit Akwaba. C'est le bienvenu. C'est au nom de mon patron, le PDG, président, directeur général du GCA. GCA, c'est Centre mondial de l'adaptation, que je vous accueille une fois de plus. Merci. Mon nom c'est Olu Ajayi. Je suis le responsable chargé du programme de sécurité alimentaire et le bien-être en milieu rural au sein de GCA. Étant donné que nous sommes dans un pays anglophone, ici au Ghana, donc on va continuer mon discours en anglais. Ça, c'est juste une petite first pour notre frère et soeur francophone. So I would like to continue my presentation in English. We are in Ghana. Okay. Okay, ready? So please, you can put on your earphones once again. Now, I just felt I should give that kind of foretaste to our brothers and sisters from the francophone countries who have been wanting to hear something in French. So that's good. Yes, I will be speaking. You know, my CEO said this morning in his speech that I will be here and I'll give you more information about the details of what we do in the climate smart digital technology and the pillar. So, and I will do exactly that. That's what my CEO asked me to do, to give you a little bit more of the meat. But beyond this presentation, please, you are also free. I'll be here the whole of today, the whole of tomorrow, Lord willing, and some part of early morning on Saturday. So please feel free to have a chat with me and let's discuss on what we can do together. My CEO also this morning gave a very powerful and passionate presentation message on GCA, on adaptation. He mentioned that there are 4 key pillars. That's what I lead. There is one on rural African infrastructure. There's the one on youth, creating job opportunities, green jobs for youth. As you know, there is this youth bulge, the youth constitution. The challenge. We've heard about how climate variability is critical to smallholder farmers, particularly because our agriculture is rain-fed. Less than 10% of the areas cultivated to agriculture is irrigated, so most of them are. So when the rainfall is good, super, everything is what is happy. But when the rainfall is bad, too much, too little, flood or drought, there are challenges, there are issues. So you find that agriculture and weather seems to be like, they call them jumeau, like twins. When agriculture is good, when rainfall is good, agriculture is good, so it's why they sort of oscillate. So there's a recurrent boom and bust when it comes to food production and rural well-being tied to the weather. People are increasingly asking this question. It seems that weather extremes have become not just the exceptional, but like the norm, the mainstream. There are changes to the starting dates and ending dates of the growing season. When I was growing up, I grew up in the rural villages, and I remembered we always could identify at this period of the year you could start cultivating your land, and then you can start growing. But these days, things have changed. The frequency and intensity of dry spells are increasing. For most of the crops, particularly the stable ones, maize, rice, the growth has stalled. Figures show that there is 1.4% reduction of food calories per year for the key major crops due to climate change. And if food insecurity increases between 5 to 20% with each flood or drought. So what's the key message? The key thing is that climate issue in terms of agriculture is no longer a problem for the future. Okay, something that will happen in some years to come, but it's something that's here and now, and it's patching on progress. There is a publication which is produced led by GCA with quite a lot of great institutions across the world. It is called STA, States and Trends on Adaptation. It's published annually. The latest one just came out. It was launched in COP27 just about a few weeks ago. Please, you can go to our website and download it. It contains some of the most authoritative and wide publication, information, citation, and figures, facts and figures on adaptation. It shows that the cost of climate adaptation in agriculture is less than 10% of inaction. That means it pays us to act now, spend some little money, and have some problem than to continue with the problems and make it to become bigger. So these are problems we heard much about, but then the question is, where are the solutions? What are the kind of solutions? Well, there could be short-term and emergency, like when there's drought, you could provide food relief. That's been done in some parts of Africa. You could also, another type of solution is medium to long-term. How do we ensure the resilience, the climate smartness of agricultural practices, of our food systems? And we look at the digital climate information and advisory services. Henceforth, I can call them DCAS. One thing we notice is that there is a very great high potential of innovations that are available. The science of discovery. A lot of things have been discovered as potential solutions. But there's a big gap between what is available in principle and what is available to farmers who need them in practice. So this disconnect between science of delivery and science of discovery is quite a big issue. How do you block that? Agriculture extension systems are supposed to help get information from the research institutions to farmers who need them. But you and I know what's happening in many of our countries. The farmer extension ratio is just incredible. I started here just one example from East Africa. The latest figures show that there's about one agric extension on the average to about 5,000 smallholder farmers. What can they do? What can one person do for 5,000? But in Nigeria, let me give her some, which I also know well, the figure is between 7,000 to 10,000 smallholder farmers per extension officers. So you can see it's quite a challenge. At the same time, there are increasing opportunities. That's one of the problems. But on the other side, there are increasing opportunities for digitalization. Weather data is increasing, access to phone. I know some farmers have basic phones, maybe not the smart one. Satellite, and I think that was discussed earlier. And also, studies have shown that farmers, smallholder farmers who adopt digital solutions in their practices, in their operations, has the potential to increase their yield and income between 40 to 70% just by this. I cited an example. I said the emerging opportunities. We heard from the Honorable Chair of the Select Committee on Agriculture earlier on. He talked about satellite data and remote sensing. And Dr. Yomeki Bamiji also in his presentation spoke passionately about this. This data and remote sensing and GIS and others have actually increased the accuracy of information, improved the resolution. There are increasingly more and more business entities and private sector that are also going into issues on digitalization. In many countries, there is increasing multiple network I know where I come from, in some countries, it could have about 3 or 4, even though sometimes it could be an issue. And then cell phones are becoming not as exclusive in those days as it is now. So given that, what is the pathway to drive digitalization? How do you deploy this? And I put out the context. I mentioned earlier on that the technology is changing the way in which food is produced, the way that food is transformed, and the way that food is being distributed. I spoke the fact that with an adoption of some digital solutions, farmers can potentially increase between 40 to 70% their yield and income. That is in principle. And in practice, so many farmers, smallholder farmers, particularly smallholders and the female-headed household. My CEO alluded to that this morning in his message. These are the ones that are most impacted, but they don't have access. So that's so many farmers, between 13 to 35% of farmers, only them are using digital solutions. So the majority are still out of that. We heard about the digital divide and it's 25%. So the aim, the purpose, the goal of this program that I'm leading, DCSA, is that we want to increase access, sustain uptake of digital adaptation solutions for at least 30 million farmers in Africa and improve food security for at least 26 countries, to improve food security for at least 10 million farmers. And how do we do that? We have 3 key intervention areas. The first thing is to come in as a thought leader on climate smart digital technologies in agriculture. We call it knowledge and analytics on climate risks. That is, what are the climate risks with various agricultural value chains? At what point in the value chain are these climatic risks the most acute? Who is impacted by this climate risk? To what extent are they impacted? What's the implication for men and women and for youth? So these are the information. Then on top of that, we ask ourselves, so what are the inventory of digital solutions that are available with that locality or that country to address the problem? We didn't just want to identify problems without looking at solutions. We're saying, what are the problems and what are the solutions, digital solutions that are available to address this problem? That's the first thing. Second thing we ask ourselves is, if you look at the agricultural development and investment resources that go into agricultural sector in most countries in Africa, they are driven, the investors are mainly the African Development Bank of this world, the World Bank of this world, and the IFADs and others. So we have partnered with them so that in designing these big investment projects, we work with them to ensure that climate adaptation and issue of climate risk are well integrated and mainstreamed in the design, in the implementation of these projects, and also to ensure that resources are allocated to these issues in their projects, in the MDBs and DFIs, multilateral development banks and development finance institutions. And the third thing is what we are doing here. I recall some years ago, a minister of agriculture in one of the countries in Africa wanted to encourage farmers to go into digitalization to take advantage of this. He was encouraging farmers to have access to phones. That became a big issue. People are saying, what has cell phone got to do with agriculture? There's no relationship. What you need to do is give farmers X or give farmers Y. They don't send any link. So one of the things we want to do here is to kind of bring that kind of question. What has digitalization got to do with agriculture and addressing climate change? So the idea is to build the capacity of last mile. So we have picked people who are particularly here, people who work with the farmers organizations, who work with farmers, either in institutions of learning, higher learning, who can impart knowledge, people in extension, people in ministries and others. So we can build enhanced capacities of persons and institutions to implement projects on climate smart digital solutions. And then the final thing we do is on cross-cutting. As we implement this with our other partners, we want to learn some lesson. What has worked? What has not worked? We call it in Francais, capitalisation. What has worked? What has not worked? What can be improved? What are the areas? What lessons are we learning? So that as we develop this, then we can improve our knowledge, learning by doing, and also exchange information. Let me just give this slide, just talking about, my CEO mentioned that this morning, I will explain that. The key result we have got so far in the past 18 months that we have been working on this is that through the AAP, triple AP, upstream facility, GCA, working in partnership with the African Development Bank and the World Bank, has succeeded to facilitate the mainstreaming of adaptation solutions into investment worth $3.5 billion US. This includes 1.6 billion from this pillar. These projects are benefiting 5 million farmers in the past 18 months. I want to say that we are working primarily on this with the African Development Bank, and I'm glad that the country manager of Ghana was present or came along with us to show the demonstration that we are really working. We have inserted ourselves, we are working together as a very strong partnership to get these things going. We're also working with the World Bank on this. And currently, we're actually initiating, we're expanding relationship and having a lot of projects with AFD, this French Development Agency, Agence Française de Développement, with IFAD, with Islamic Development Bank. We are actually having a project with them now in Egypt, quite a huge amount of money. And of course, with the European Investment Bank. You might begin to wonder, so which are these projects? So I want to just talk briefly about few cases, not all of them. One of the projects I want to talk about is what they call BREFON. This project is building resilience for food and nutrition security in the Horn of Africa. This covers 6 countries: Kenya, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. What GCA is, what we add that this is a $250 million worth of investment projects. What we did as a GCA is to work with AFDB to provide upstream technical assistance to ensure that climate smart technologies and climate smart digital technologies are integrated in the project. As I'm speaking, we just got an approval. We're helping 4 countries, 4 out of the 6. That's Kenya, Djibouti, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. We are helping them to prepare feasibility and technical design of national digital advisory services in 4 countries. Until now, we have completed digital adaptation profile. What's the profile of digital? Who are the players? What's in architecture of institutions working on the area? The mapping of the stakeholders, what are they doing? What are the challenges? What are the issues? So if anyone wants to design an adaptation profile, where should they go? Which part of the country? So those are the things that have been done. We have also prepared some information, background information on insurance for them. We have also supported quite a lot of work. So can we push this? Yeah. Yes, okay. We have developed a playbook to identify and implement digital adaptation in Africa. So if anybody's interested, we can, like a playbook that's a model. If you want to carry out these things in your country, how do you go about it? This is available. Please speak with me. I can share this with you. Let me go to the second one. The second one is on just a single country, Nigeria. This is a $500 million worth of project, which is focused on livestock. The ideas, what we are doing, what we did as our GC, or what C doing, is to ensure that issue of adaptation is well incorporated into that. I know my brother Usman from Kano Casino is very interested in this project because on livestock, and it's in Nigeria. Yes. We're also promoting inventory. What are the digital tools that are available within the country that can help to address the solution? Let me quickly go because of time. The third example, we move from a single country to another one. I'm laying a lot of emphasis on projects in West Africa. This one is a program to build resilience to food security and nutrition security in the Sahel. Program de renforcement de la résilience à la sécurité is to create alimentaire au Senegal. It covers about 10 countries, from Senegal to Chad to northern part of Togo, and the investment is about 300 million. What we are doing, okay. What we are doing is actually we are supporting the training of national officers to train them in DCAS and it used to support intervention. But we are also concerned that when in many African countries, when there is donor funding for 2 years, for 3 years, a lot of things, great things happen. But the moment the funding ends, what happens? Everything goes down south. We want to see how we can change this narrative. So we are helping to build, to support business model that build public-private partnership that can carry this on even after the initial 4 or 5 year support is done. We'll be supporting them to conduct regional fairs to showcase the best practices, as well as identify capacity and enabling policy issues for the uptake of DCAS. We are not only working in West Africa or East Africa, we also work in Southern African region. There's a program called Program for Integrated Development and Adaptation to Climate Change in the Zambezi Basin. This covers 8 countries, from Angola, Mozambique, down to other countries. And what we are doing is we help them to map the various digital technologies that are available with the potential to accelerate adaptation. We help them to identify the key constraints and opportunities for digital technologies and also propose entry points and actions to increase the uptake and adaptation of digital tools in these countries. Let me quickly go. The final one I want to give is the one in Zambia. It's called Zambo. That's actually going to 300 million from the World Bank. We are helping to assess middle risk in various key crops. In Zambia, maize. You know, in Zambia, there's something there's a common saying that Chimanga Ndimoyo. That means it's a local language which says maize is life. So maize is a strategic crop. So we are focusing on that. We're also organizing training sessions on DCAS, facilitating policy engagements between partners, and also opportunities for adaptation job. Finally, as I begin to round up, I mentioned that the third thing we do is building capacity, and this is starting from this one. We work with African Development Bank and FAO to prepare a toolkit. What are the toolkits that can be used to deploy it in various investment projects? And in addition to that, we are starting a regional training on DCAS, starting from West Africa. So you can see most of the people, almost everyone who is here is from West Africa. You begin to wonder, so what is happening to that regions? Yes, is coming. We felt we work on climate. We don't want to bring people from Southern Africa to come here, fly overnight, 24 hours. Let's have a small group, people travel within 2-3 hours. And then, Lord willing, in December, it should not be December, now it's going to be in February 2023, we'll be having this similar training for East African countries. And then in March, we have the one for Southern African region, and then in Q2, April and May, we have same for Central Africa and North African region. Bring people together, what have we learned, and how can the use of digital tools be improved? What are the challenges we are experiencing? How have we been able to address them? And how can we work together to address this issue? We're working already in our project I mentioned. I just gave you just 5 examples, but there are many more. Currently, we are working in 26 countries in the different regions. And with the new programs we are doing now, I mentioned Egypt, in Congo, DR, in Ghana, here in this country, as well as Tunisia, we have reached about 30 countries before in the next couple of months. Who are we working with? Of course, you can imagine how many are we? How can we do all of this things? We're not working alone, we work with partners. And we have many of them. AATF is one. African Academy of Science is one. Indaba is in Zambia. CAF in Zimbabwe. Frontier in Ethiopia. These are African-based organizations. African Risk Capacity and AAAI. In addition, we also work with CGIR, SIAT, IMI, IRI, and CIMID. And currently we are initiating very interesting work. The Centre de Suivi Écologique in Senegal is actually coming on board soon. ATPS, ACMAN, and others. So we have a lot of technical partners. We have listed here, but there's one particular organization that is missing. And you get who that is? Your organization. You know, let me cite what my CEO, as I round up, said earlier. He said, just this morning, he said, we need you to drive this agenda. It's a huge agenda. We are well ready to collaborate. So you and your organizations are needed. We want a situation where very soon your organization can also feature here as one of the potential organizations that can work with us. So on that basis, I say, let me stop here and thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Question?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Olu. I mean, Dr. Olu is well known across the continent as Dr. Olu, but the name is Oluyede. It's Oluyede. No, sit down temporarily, relax, because I'm going to give the audience 5 minutes to raise question, comment, concern. Please note that this is training of trainers. Okay? It is not just a conference, and it is not a talk shop. When we say training of trainers, we want you to go home with accurate knowledge. So if you are confused about anything is not clear, please ask questions. Otherwise, the erroneous impression you take away, you will multiply it. I hope I make sense. So feel very free at every point in time to raise your questions, write down your questions, raise it for the different presenters. So we have less than 10 minutes to quickly interrogate this first stuff that Dr. Olu has given us. If you have any comment, questions, please raise your hand. Okay, I've seen 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. You know the rules. You have half a minute, 30 seconds to ask your questions. Not more than 2 per person. Okay, number 1. Please use your microphone. Dr. Olu, please take your notes.
Thank you so much.
Let's go quickly.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Olu. I so much love your presentation. My concern is about your goal, which stated that you want to sustain uptake of digital adaptation solution for at least 30 million farmers in Africa and food security in 26 countries. Then what's that? So probably if you get us the indicators, maybe we'll be able to also utilize it in our own activities wherever we find ourselves. So that's my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, question 2.
Hello, I'm Maxwell from Sierra Leone. I want to commend Dr. Sorry for not completing your name, for this brilliant idea that DCSA has come with. In Sierra Leone, really, climate has been a serious problem. And our farmers, the smallholder farmers, have found it very difficult to cope or to even determine the situation, climatic situation, or the seasonal operations that they are used to be. And this program is very timely, and indeed, we see it as an evidence of the need for all African states, especially West Africa, and ROPA, one of the bodies that cover smallholder farmers in this continent, in West Africa, particularly, to put cognizance, to take cognizance of the strides FARA is taking so that we too can get adopted and we can adapt to whatever situations they are coming up with, especially for this digitalization in climate smart agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, number 3, quick.
Donc, merci au docteur. Souffrez que je parle en français. Je viens de la Côte d'Ivoire, Fidèle Quadio. Je voulais savoir comment vous adressez le défi des infrastructures dans la digitalisation dont vous parlez. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, comme vous le savez, pour pouvoir faire la digitalisation, il faut disposer d'instruments, d'équipements et tout ça. Comment le GCA adresse le défi là? Merci.
Okay, that's good. Number 4.
Ok, merci. Je vais parler aussi français. Et moi, je suis intéressé par le profil de ces petits exploitants en fait, agricoles qui ont été accompagnés, parce que à voir le résultat reluisant quand même qui a été obtenu, quand nous le croisons en fait avec les réalités de nos pays, quand nous connaissons en fait le profil d'agriculteur que nous on a chez nous, on se demande quels ont été en fait les moyens innovants qui ont été utilisés pour atteindre en fait cette cible. Merci.
Okay, number 5, and the last one.
Merci, je viens du Bénin. Et donc, les contraintes des producteurs sont connues et les solutions digitales pour adresser ces contraintes-là existent au niveau de l'Afrique. Mais la difficulté qu'on a, c'est comment faire pour que ces solutions-là soient à la portée des utilisateurs finaux que sont les producteurs. Nous avons de sérieuses difficultés au Bénin et pour rendre accessibles ces solutions digitales aux producteurs.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. Okay, number 6 and the last one. Be quick.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I just wanted to highlight what he has said about the smallholder farmers, the suffering they are doing and what he wants them to be, but what we want them to be tomorrow. But we have been talking about adaptation. This year we have observed a lot of loss and damage on the rice fields, in the homes, and everywhere in West Africa especially. What are you talking about on that? What are you going to do on that? What are your comments on that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all these good questions. Dr. Lu, I'm sure the participant or your students are putting you on the hot seat, but you're used to it. It appears that's where you sit every time. Please quickly respond to these questions.
What and then no? Is it clear? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these questions. Yeah, the first question I get is someone who asked, this 30 million, how do we intend to reach out to them? And what are the indicators? Very good questions. Yes, I mentioned that we don't want to go the way of simply going like an NGO, go with your money and do it ourselves. But we felt, who are the people who determine the trajectory? We said, who are the institutions that determine trajectory of agri-development and investment agriculture in Africa? So we identified these key ones. So we reach out to them and work with them so that in the design of their projects, there are resources, there are clear indicators. For example, we ensure that in their project concept, we call it PCN, project concept note, they have clear information about the number of farmers that are trained on DCAS. They have information of number of farmers that are benefiting from DCAS. They have information on the different financial solutions or digital financial solutions that are given to farmers to ensure that farmers can increase their productivity and benefit from all of these things. I know in all this, I mentioned one is about $500 million. There's specific amount of money, which because this is already integrated in project ideas, there are resources allocated to ensure that these things are carried out in those projects. So you see, we are doing upstream to ensure that this money and all these ideas are clearly outlined and they are well bought. And so when they are well on board and approved by the board, resources, specific resources, also several millions, are allocated to ensure that these indicators and these things are done. So we intend to reach out to these 30 million farmers through this partnership with this institution. We have influenced this project. And I mentioned earlier on, we talk of within 18 months, we have influenced $3.5 billion US. This is a huge amount of money. Humongous, more than any NGO can just deploy on this. So this is something that's going to carry out. That's our way of doing it.
Yeah, Dr. Lu, you have half a minute for his question.
Okay, good. How do you address digital infrastructure? Yes, very just, and I'm glad that question was going to come up, especially what has happened today. What we do is we are aware of that because in many rural areas, you go there, maybe there's only one bar or maybe no bar at all, no network. What we do is we do it in two ways. First is we don't go only with smartphone or internet-based phone. We go with USSD, where you don't need internet. You can work offline and get information offline. That's USSD, that's one. The second thing we do is we are working now with various governments to identify policies that can encourage private sector operatives to be able to invest in these other rural areas. But primarily we are using USSD. Since Mr. Moderator is on my case, let me go quickly. The third one is what are the innovative methods to reach out to farmers? I explained that already, that we are not going through the normal route. We get funding and what to do, we buy 4x4 vehicles and we go out to teach farmers. And after the funding runs out, everything just dies down. We're looking for them. But we are saying let's integrate these things into the ones that have the money and let them use this money to get these things done. So all those ideas are already incorporated at the design. Before the projects are released or approved, all these things are there and they are accounting for that. Okay. So that's the method, and that's different approach we have. Yeah, somebody asked a question that, yes, problem exists and solutions exist. How do we ensure that farmers, how do we reach out to farmers? I see that question also as something I've explained. We are putting all of this into ensuring that, why this is not flying? Because there is no resources, there are no resources to kind of push them further. We are ensuring that, like when you talk of infrastructure, part of this money that we mentioned, 3.5 billion, can be allocated to ensure infrastructures are provided. Trainings are provided through this fund that are already given by the investors, IFAD, World Bank, Islamic Development Bank. So now, my sister here talked about loss and damage. Yeah, they're very, very interesting. I know that there's a fund that's just been approved for agreement to create a fund on loss and damage for adaptation to minimize this. What we are doing actually is to see what are the various technologies and digital solutions that are available that can help farmers to make informed decisions. I'll give an example. A farmer and a woman, a grandmother in the village, just preparing the food, making kenke or preparing rice and brizu, and she gets an alert and says, in the next, make sure you harvest your crop within the next 1 week, because there's going to be a heavy amount of rainfall from next week onwards. So farmers can now use that information to make informed decisions, to make the best, take the operational decisions in the field that addresses or avoid those potential damage that could have occurred. Like flooding, there are some data tools that are available that gives a prediction and tells farmers this is the situation about flooding. So make an informed decision. Farmers can know, for example, like maybe, let me give an example of livestock. Maybe the farmer noticed that the livestock the animals are getting thinner and that's a problem. You can take photo, just a picture of that, and send it across to digital means, and then somebody will look at it and provide a real-time information and say, this is what is happening and this is what we should do. So what this digital tools is doing is to help to minimize this loss and damage. Okay, I stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olu. I think that explains it. And thank you for doing all the good work from GCA. I mean, adaptation, is that? And I think that is a key word that we need, all the trainees, including myself, the facilitators, need to internalize. I know that two keywords are important around climate change: adaptation and mitigation. But the key thing for Africa is adaptation, because we are the least contributor. In fact, our contribution is less than 3% aggregate. You get it? And when you now put it on an average, certain countries is 0 point something. You get it? So it's like we are not contributing, okay? But we are suffering most. So our issue should be adaptation. Okay, that is good. We've done this background. We have two other background presentation, but because of our time, I'm going to use military regime to actually cancel them. Okay, they are background things, and let me just ask you, if I ask each of you to just quickly mention one problem of Africa agriculture, just reflect. You know it? Yes, we know it, because they are the same in the last 40 years. And if you don't know that, then you should not be in this training. So there is no need to go into that presentation anymore. Of course, there are a few new things in it, but what we will do is we will share that slide with you, which I think is self-explanatory because of our time. Now, it will be good for me to just do a bit of this. so that we have an understanding. It's just like 4 slides that I will show. I will leave the remaining and I'll share with you. To have an understanding of who is here. Okay? Now, you fill in this information and we aggregated it. Then we ask you, your work, is your work related to agricultural adaptation? And we discovered that 82% of the participants here and online said that their work is related to climate change adaptation and mitigation. And I think that's a very good statistic. Then we ask, what is your level of knowledge of climate smart agriculture? Maybe climate change. You get it? And 53.8% said they have medium knowledge. Only 20% have high knowledge. In other words, of all the audience online and in the hall, you know, only 20% have online. Then 23.2% have low. And the people that are real experts, okay, they are really very few. I think less than 10%, okay, are a few experts. And what that is telling the core trainer is that people have medium knowledge. Don't let your, what do you call it, presentation language be too technical, okay? Secondly, it's a mixed language, Anglo-English, and you are presenting in English. You need to present slowly so that translation can pick it. Then be conscious that jargons in English and in French many times are not compatible. So be expressive and explanatory so that people can pick that. So we ask that, have you contributed in the past to knowledge product on the subject matter? Now we realize that 58.7% said yes, they have contributed. In other words, you've written a paper, you've written a training manual, you've written a newspaper article or something in the past around this, or you have actually done that. Then 36.5% said, I have not written nothing on this subject matter. And that's an indication, you get it, that should influence the way we teach. Then, do you have knowledge of the use of digital tools? Okay, so people have 52.8%. You know, digital tools, Dr. Hulu mentioned a handful of them and case studies. So 52.8%, you know, 30% have low, and only 15.1% have high, and they can talk about the apps they've used and all those stuff. We're going to do a lot of group work in these 2 days, and those who have high knowledge, they'll be bringing their knowledge to bear. Don't forget that it's a training of trainers, and we want cross-fertilization of ideas, knowledge, and experience. Okay, that's all I want to show you from our background surveys. Time will not allow me to ask every one of you to introduce yourself one, but I want to, we know that there are many high-level people here, senior technical officers, management person. It's a mixed. We have also youths here, we have women, we have people in mid-career, you know, and starters also in this audience. One thing that is beautiful, Dr. Lu, is that of the 17 countries in West Africa, 15 are represented in this audience, you know. So it's only the islands, Sao Tome and Principe, and one other new country that is not represented here. So we cover the sub-region from this. Okay, having given those background, please, the way you will introduce yourself is when you have a question or intervention, just introduce yourself and your country and the organization. So we will eventually know each other very well. So we're going to move now to the training proper. The training proper. And I want to ask Adam and Christian to be ready with their online intervention. They'll be coming online. And I think both of them, they have the tool. So this is the training proper. Not only, it's not introductory. Now, let me give you the rules of this training. which I think it is important that you are on top. You are going to be trainers of others. So for participating in this, we are going to issue an high-level certificate of training. That certificate will say certificate of training, which certify that you have been trained and we have delivered the module to you. That does not make you a trainer. Okay? We are going to admit you into the cohort of people that are trained into the D group platform for interaction and for continuous engagement. You get it? But for each module in this training, there is going to be an assessment that we will do together. Then the last question of the assessment is something you will need to write. Just a few, maybe a few sentences to explain. We will raise those questions. So in other words, it's not just delivering, but for every module there is going to be a test. So you need to concentrate. Now, after the 5 modules that this training is made up of, we will request that all of you, when you go back to your organization, okay, or your country, we will request that at least you should give a seminar on the knowledge you have acquired from this training. Maybe to your organization, to your university, or even if those facilities are not available, seek a university or somewhere where you can train others. You get it? And you need to give us pictures, video, and list of the people you have trained, the list and the email address of the people you have trained. Once you do that, we admit you into the cohort of trainers. In other words, we have trained you and you have demonstrated that you are trained by training others. Then that one is a small card, like your ATM card, it satisfies you. You get it as someone who has acquired the training and can train others. And that will be a higher level of engagement. Now, we truly want you to train others. And the more number you train, the more the stars on your card. So you continue to train, then we continue to engage you furthermore. So if the intention is I have come to enjoy myself in Accra, of course, the parliamentarian that opened the thing said you should enjoy Ghana. There will be opportunity to enjoy Ghana, but you are not, admitted into the courts of trainers, and we may not continue to engage you further. So it's a serious session, okay, that we need to give our whole attention. And that's why I said initially, ask questions. These things I said also apply to people that are joining us online. Now you will ask me, what is the procedure? After module 1, I will show you the procedure for doing that, because you will be responding, answering those questions online. So possibly we are going to give you Google link for each one. You respond to it, you type, but you must put your name, you get it, and your email address, so that we can track everything that pertains to you together, and we can examine you. There's exams, but it's a model exam. So managers and directors that are here that have not written any exam in the last 30 years, don't worry, it's an exam you can easily pass. Okay. Okay. Having said all those things, let me now give the space to Hadom. Hadom, are you online? Hadom, are you online? Hadom, are you online? Please, can you please project? Oh, yes, Adam is online, and I'm happy. Adam, so you have the floor to quickly make your intervention. Thank you very much. Yes, very well.
all kinds of things about digital solutions. So as I speak, I would like, because you are trainers, I would like you to try to listen to the vocabularies that I'm using, because I'll try to differentiate between some of them, you know, as you go into your training. So I'm talking about digital solutions and services now, and they apply to the DCAS, that is Digital Climate Advisory or Adaptation Services. So the first differentiation I would like to make is digitization and digitalization. These are two words. I don't know whether they are in French, but maybe Christian can help. But digitization and digitalization. So it's always confusing. And because you are trainers, it's good you know the difference. So I'll try to differentiate it as we go into the presentation. So digitalization is broad, okay? But digitization, this second one, digitization, is a component of digitalization, okay? And then I said digitalization for agriculture is more than digital solutions. So the digital solutions, examples that I shared in, you know, all those documented by FARA, you know, USAID, all of them are digital solutions or services. Some call it services, digital solutions or digital services for agriculture. They are components of digitalization of agriculture, okay? So I'm saying digitization is a component of digitalization of agriculture, and digital solutions are also components of digitalization for agriculture. I'm doing all this because when you go in to promote the services, it's good for you to know that the services alone cannot give you the kind of impact that you are looking for. You need to go beyond the services and look at other factors that support the services to work. If you promote a specific digital technology, you can see good results, but if you want better results, you need to look at other factors. And when you are looking at those other factors, that is where you consider digitalization, okay? So I know it's confusing, but I'll try to explain. So we have developed a framework at the Commonwealth Secretariat to explain this. Let me try to zoom this figure so that you will, now, I don't want to. So if you look at the top end here, you see climate resilience and all other factors up here. So what you guys are going to be training farmers on, the goal is to support climate resilience mainly. And then once you do that, it's going to help increase yield for farmers, increase or improve income across the value chain, not only for the farmers, but input dealers, you know, mechanization, those, you know, providing maybe tractors and all those things. So all the value chain actors, we expect higher income as a result of, you know, digitalization. We expect financial inclusion, women and youth. So that is the kind of impact we are expecting at smallholder level. If we see this impact at smallholder level, we see them happening eventually, then we expect macro level impact where you will see sustainable food and nutrition security and inclusive growth. And that's where we will talk about agricultural transformation. If you know, we don't see this smallholder farmer, you know, being resilient to climate, you know, increasing production, some of them that Olu mentioned, you know, income, financial access. If we don't see that, then our dream of SDGs at the macro level will not be realized. So we need to see this impact at the smallholder level. Okay. So for this to happen, that is where the digitalization comes in. And what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about digitalization of agriculture, we need to look at 3 pillars and a base. So these are the 3 pillars, okay, and the base. Once you are careful and apply these 3 pillars and the base, then we can see digitalization enabling these factors up here. That's where you see agricultural transformation. So now let's come to the digital part. So the digital part, when you see the first pillar, for us and with this framework, DCAS falls under this component here, digital solutions or services. So the DCAS falls there, the digital climate advisory or adaptation services. Some say advisory, some say adaptation services, falls here. And our explanation is that these are the services that reach the farmer, like the examples that Dr. Ajayi was saying. You send a message to a farmer that you need to take action now. And then the farmer receives the message on either feature phone or smartphone. That is the service that is reaching the farmer. And we need to clarify that, we need to differentiate that. But behind the service that the farmer is receiving, there are digital technologies. So the farmer is not going to use blockchain. The farmer is not using artificial intelligence or machine learning, but the enterprise that is providing the service has the technologies behind the service. So the enterprise, the startup, like the farmer line in Ghana, is using AI at the back end. So this framework tries to differentiate between the services and the technologies. So the digital solutions and the services are the ones the farmer receives direct, either IVR, a voice message, or text message, or whatever. But the digital technologies are the ones that enable accurate services to get to farmers. So farmer, enterprise will use machine learning to capture, blockchains and drones, but the smallholder farmer may not be able to use drones to fly over the field. But the drones are used to capture data, which is analyzed, and then advice are provided to the farmer through the digital climate advisory services. So that is a big part of the framework of our digital agriculture, which we refer to as digital innovation. The second pillar is the data infrastructural part, which is big. I don't think I'll have time to explain it because my time is running out. But our argument is that data is behind the solutions and the services. And we classify the data into content data and user data. So for the farmer to receive accurate, customized service, you need to capture data on the farmer, as well as maybe weather station, agronomic profile of the crop, soil. And once you pull all that together, you can tell the farmer that, oh, I'm observing this on your field, and you need to take this action. And you know where the farmer is, you know the name of the farmer, the crop the farmer has sown. So that is the data part. But when we say data infrastructure, our argument is that you need to look at the infrastructure that is used to manage the data. As I said, if I have time, I'll explain it further. Then the third part is the business case. And I heard Dr. Ajayi also mention it, that, the services are there, but you need to go beyond project level to sustain it. And that's the question of who pays. DCA is putting money into financing, which is the first component. But we need sustainable business models for the service to continue running so that when the DCA project comes to an end, farmers can still receive the service. As I said, I don't think I have enough time to deep dive into all this, but the bottom part, which we call the base, is the enabling environment. And that has a number of factors, including infrastructure, the cell towers, policies and strategies, capacity building, like some of the things that is happening today and tomorrow in Accra through this workshop, knowledge product, as mentioned, business ecosystem. You need all these factors mainly at country level or regional level for pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3 to work. And then once that works, then we expect, the agricultural transformation or the smallholder agriculture transformation. So that is the digital agricultural framework. When I talk about digitalization of agriculture, I'm talking about all these, the 3 pillars and the base. But when I talk about digitization, it's mainly at pillar 2, where you apply technology to information or data and you convert it from analog to digital. That is digitization. So it applies mainly at, the data level. I used to be agricultural extension officer in Ghana. Those times I go to the field, I take pen and paper, Excel sheet and all kinds of things. But nowadays, extension agents are not using pen and paper. They digitize their data, right? So you have tablets and you go to the field, you organize, discussion groups, and the farmers that are in the group, everything. So that is digitization. And that digitization is needed for digitalization of the agricultural sector. And most of the time, digitization is applied to, specific areas like commodities or enterprise. You digitize your process. But when you talk about digitalization, it's big. It can be a country level. The country needs to digitalize its agriculture. So my time is up, I think. I have 15 minutes. I have other slides to talk about, but because of time, I don't know. Christian, do you think I should continue? Or
No, I think it's fine. I can take over and but we will be sharing your slides with the participants, so they'll be able to look at the other slides as well.
Sure. Thank you.
They'll be able to look at.
Sure. Thank you.
Very much, Adam. So let's take Christian. Christian, I am watching time. You have just 15 minutes to make your interventions. But participants, you have listened to Adam, digitization and digitalization. If any of the terminologies is still confusing, please put down your question. And for participants online, don't hesitate to please type your question into the chat. Christian, Adam, and other presenter in this training will be online to respond to you directly. And if there is any need, just raise your hand. We will be able to recognize you during question and answer time. So Christian, you have the floor and time is against you. Run now. Time is against you. Run now.
See if I can.
Time is against
Need to go back to my slides. Just hang on. It's good to, for those who have been interacting with this morning online, at least you can see sharing this. Can you see the screen now? I can see my screen there. I'm not sure whether you can hear me. Strange that we had this challenge before. Okay, good. So I'm taking that you can hear me. So as Dr. Fatumbi mentioned, I'm running against time, but I wanted to just complement what Dr. Adam also mentioned in terms of, he zoomed in on the intricacies of applying the technology. And I wanted to take a step outwards to look at the context within which we're talking about digital climate advisory services. And you know, and I wanted to start with, you know, the words of wisdom we always hear, you know, take a step back to better leap forward, which always sounds better in French, when you say reculer pour mieux sauter, ou bondir. Look before you leap, so you have to look around. And also this other adage that we have about if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. And I wanted to just you know, reflect on that. How do we since this morning you've been hearing a lot of advice coming from different people on different aspects we need to take into consideration when we're talking about digitalization. We're talking about these services facilitated through digital technologies. But what we have to do is to look back on what we can build on. We look around to see who else we want to collaborate with on this journey we are taking forward. Obviously, we have to focus on the destination. So basically our vision, our shared vision as a region, as country, as a region, and as a continent. And then we plan our path together. So in looking back, I just highlighted a few things that, you know, organizations have been doing in the past. And, you know, Ben just mentioned CTA, which had done a lot of work before in the past in terms of democratizing access to agricultural information. And in the last 10 years, we had seen how the situation evolved from, okay, I thought my slides were already in presentation mode. Anyway, let's go on with anyway, you'll be able to see it, and the slides will be shared. So we've gone from looking at communications management, information management, very often getting stuck in terms of the technologies kind of dictating what we should be doing in terms of information management services. But eventually we've gone beyond in terms of knowledge management, developing knowledge management strategies, and building on knowledge management practices. So much so that nowadays, and I'll come to that later, that we even have networks of knowledge management professionals in the agricultural sector across Africa, facilitated by FARA. Now, something else I wanted to show you is that we also look around and learn from each other in the region, in the continent. And here, this is, you know, this acronym, which we call PERFECT.
Slide in full presentation mode. Yeah, because the hall is big, we need to see this slide properly. Thank you.
You're not able to see. Is that any better? That's all. Is that okay? Is that better now? That's something with screen sharing. You cannot see the messages. Okay, I'm just going to go on. Okay, so again, this acronyming of perfect as a way of ensuring that you have built your multi-stakeholder processes and multi-stakeholder teams to address issues correctly by ensuring you have all the relevant stakeholders around you around the table. And we also have seen, again, in the context of Africa, and especially facilitated with FARA and the sub-regional organizations, as well as the NARS, or NARIs or NARES, how people prefer to. Okay, there's something wrong with the display. I cannot see what you are seeing from here, so we'll just have to go with it. I'm sorry about that. So we see that there are different levels of interactions. From a continental level, there are organizations set in place that are able to play a role in terms of facilitating the interactions of people, of institutions, and obviously going from policy making right down to people on the ground who are involved in the action. And I just wanted to say that having seen all that, we expect that this decade of 2020 to 2030 to have been the era of the disruptive innovations. A lot of new initiatives happening, and the slide there just talks about the different strategies that have been developed, the actions that are happening, the initiatives around capacity strengthening on agricultural innovation systems. We had the UN Food Systems Summit last year, FAO having developed a new science and innovation strategy, okay, during its next strategic period of until 2030. Obviously, 2030 also being the deadline, for the SDGs. So a lot of initiatives converging, looking in the same direction, sharing the vision. In the continent itself, we have several interventions happening with the establishment of different platforms across Africa, with the free trade area, between Africa and Europe in terms of coordination of agricultural research and innovation, the standards. Okay, and my slide is not moving. It's always good to have an assistant in the house who's doing the quality control. I don't know what has happened and why it's not doing that. But I'll just continue with this. So verbally, okay, maybe the key question that now I can see my own screen and your screen. So the key lesson we've learned, okay, what we talk about disruptions, but in the end, COVID came and disrupted us. But obviously, we also learned lessons during that time of COVID about this whole concept of working in bubbles and understanding the relationship we have with each other, that when there's a breakdown in the connection, we're not able to act as we were before, but we also appreciate now the roles we play in terms of facilitating each other. So sometimes we talk of hierarchies of systems, but I would also, whether we refer to as top-down, but I would say that it's also about being further from the action, where the action is on the ground. The policymakers are further away, but yet they're interacting with other stakeholders to be able to get the key messages and the key processes across in terms of achieving agricultural transformation, which we're all talking about. Okay, and so in terms of these levels of interactions, we need to appreciate again the connections between those different levels in the hierarchy. And again, the reason why I'm raising this is to introduce this concept of innovation systems. And Farah has worked a lot about around the whole theme of, innovation platforms, integrated agricultural platforms for research and innovation. And the linkage here is that these same concepts have to be done at a larger scale in terms of innovation niches. And there's a whole conversation that is developing now in the next 5 or 10 years. We'll be talking about transitions into that lead to the transformation in the agricultural sector. And therefore there's a need to connect the conversations we've been having in agricultural research and innovation across Africa around innovation platforms to lead into those changes that lead into the transition. So when you talk of an innovation niche, it's actually a series of innovations that come together to form a package that can actually then challenge the current way of doing things, which we refer to as the regime. Now, while the regime is a business as usual, there's also a changing landscape. So all the consultations we're having during the COP sessions every year is also influencing the change of the landscape. And we are now at the interaction between global commitments, society wanting to see things done in a certain way, global commitments on behalf of the countries, but how do our systems now innovate, bring about these innovations that are packaged to be able to change the way we do things and obviously to improve the way we do things. Again, these levels, I keep referring to these levels, and my focus of this presentation is about understanding that it's no longer about just bringing all the stakeholders together around the table, but understanding the roles that we all have to play vertically in a system. How each one of us facilitates the enabling environment for the other one closer to the action. And on the right-hand side is this concept of functional capacity within our institutions, our capacity to understand complexity, to navigate complexity, capacity for collaboration, capacity to reflect and learn from our experiences, capacity to engage the different stakeholders, and obviously the capacity to facilitate synergies, which there's a lot of what you as trainers will be doing. You're starting a conversation about the DCAS, but the conversation does not stop there. There'll be so many other issues that will also come in. So you need then to also know how to facilitate the dialogue and the conversations that go on around the training you're carrying out. So as a conclusion, we will require to take a bigger picture into consideration of what we are doing when we talk about introducing or implementing DCAS. We will have to understand the role and the mutual understanding laterally, but also vertically, and how we are interconnected. And as I mentioned already, collaborate and develop synergies. There's this term co-petition that comes up. rather than competition. So we collaborate around certain things that are worth sharing, that are of a public good or good for most of the stakeholders, and we can compete on services around how best we can offer these services to our stakeholders. But in this workshop, what we're doing is actually the first step, in this long journey. So understand that what you're doing here is a step in the direction towards what Ben talked about in terms of digitalization, what we're talking about in terms of transitions, innovation, transitions into transformation of the agricultural sector. And I wanted to leave you with this because as we come back from lunch, you'll be starting the training session with someone who has the experience. And I wanted to put up this picture to introduce our main facilitator and trainer, someone who's been dealing with ICTs and devices for the last 10 years. As you can see, that was a photo from 2013. We're now in 2022, almost going to be 10 years since that was taken in the context of the ICT for Ag conference back in 2013. So yeah, sorry about the little mishaps with the slides, but you will be able to get a copy of it online, and I'll see you after lunch in terms of the training sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. I hope you can get the applause from the audience. It's actually very loud. Thank you. So I'll give another 10 minutes. Please, Christian and Adam, please stay online to respond to questions and comments. This is TOT. Comment questions for Christian and Adam. 1, 2, going, gone. So 2 questions.
So good afternoon.
I got 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my question goes to Adam.
Please be loud, because
Yeah.
they are online.
Yeah. So I'm Stephen Yabua from CSI, one of the institutes in Kumasi, Crop Research Institute. My question goes to Adam. You mentioned about sustainability, that one of the clear approaches to sustainability is to develop for business partnership development, or to develop partnership between private and public sector. My question is, do you have any model per your practice that has worked when it comes to digitalization of agriculture in Africa in terms of private-public partnership? You have an experience of any model you want to share with us, and where can we get those materials to read? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Moi, ma question s'adresse à Benjamin. C'est surtout par rapport, quand il s'agit de produire des informations, on sait que c'est plusieurs acteurs qui interviennent. Moi, j'aimerais savoir quels sont les acteurs impliqués dans la production de ces informations, depuis l'élaboration jusqu'à le partage de ces informations. Ensuite, revenir un peu sur la pérennisation. Quand vous produisez des informations, durant le projet, ça ne pose pas de problème. Mais après le projet, il y a un problème de pérennisation de toutes ces informations. Et terminer aussi par, vous travaillez avec des acteurs qui sont très réfractaires dans les nouvelles technologies, à savoir les agriculteurs et les pasteurs. Quelles sont les stratégies qui sont utilisées pour leur permettre vraiment d'accepter tous ces outils-là que vous menez pour que ces producteurs acceptent ces outils? On sait qu'aussi, tous ces outils-là, ça permet d'augmenter la production de ces agro-pasteurs. Quelles sont les stratégies ou bien les mesures qui vous permettent de mesurer l'impact de ces outils sur les rendements de ces producteurs? Je vous remercie.
Okay. Yes. That's the second question. I think I saw Abigail Iyilade's hand online. Yeah, Madam Abigail, can you raise your question now online?
Okay, sir, thanks so much. I just want to confirm the agricultural transformation framework. Who actually developed it and what year was it developed? The one that was taken by the first presenter.
Okay. Okay. I did not see any other hand online, so I'm going to give the floor now to Adam and Christian to respond to the questions that pertains to them. Okay, I see another hand, Muritala Badmosi. Muritala, please hold on there. Let them respond to these three questions. Then we give you the floor. Thank you.
Okay, let me try to respond to the questions. I think the first two questions focus on the business model, sustainability, and data. So I don't know if I have any working model to share, but we're still working on concept. The Commonwealth Secretariat, we take policy approach, and what we do is to create that policy environment for people on the ground to actually deliver. So one concept that we are working on is a phased kind of approach. A phased, when I say phased, yeah, it's an English word, P-H-A-S-E, phase, not F-A-C-E, P-H-A-S-E, phase. Phase approach, where the donors de-risk the innovation, okay? So the question is the partnership model. So the donor is de-risk the innovation, like what GCA is doing. GCA may have some funding available. So what they do is promote some of these innovations. I'm getting feedback. I don't know where it's coming from, but so when they identify some of the takers, what they do is promote it within 3-4 years or 3 years. They de-risk it, the innovation, but in the process, build business model around it and create the value for the private sector to come in and scale it up and sustain it. So that's the partnership model concept between the public and the private. So the public sector like GCA or the donors like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Agra, Rockefeller, identify some of these innovations. So if you look at my framework, we have the financing part as the first part, where the finance and the risk, and then the second part is, the investment. So if you de-risk the innovation, the service, then it's attractive to the private sector to come in. So you need collaboration. But the problems we have is those who are de-risking the innovation, they don't partner with the investor. So there's a gap between the time they de-risk the innovation and the time that the investor comes. So that is the time where the project closes and nobody takes over. But if there's a partnership, then by the time the project comes to an end where they prove the case, private sector sees the business case and then invest in it to scale it up and sustain it. But we don't have that kind of partnership. So that's a problem with that. And then the last question about the framework. So the framework is a digital agricultural framework. It's not agricultural transformation framework. It's a digital agricultural framework that is expected to transform smallholder agriculture. And I said this framework has been developed by the Commonwealth Secretariat. It's one of our policy tools, and I've shared the link of the report in the web in the message, where the framework has been used to carry out basic assessment of digital agriculture in the Commonwealth. The ultimate goal is that when you use this framework under country situation or regional situation, you will be able to know which country is performing in digital agriculture better than another, if you take all these factors into consideration. Otherwise, countries will say, I'm leading in digital agriculture, but if you ask them how, they just tell you the platforms. You know, we have hundreds of platforms in our country, so we are leading, without taking into consideration other factors. So the argument is, if you take this framework into consideration, a holistic approach, it will be able to tell you which country is performing in digital agriculture better than the other. So because of time, I will stop there. Christian, if you have something to add.
I want to stop you because you spend plenty time. So Christian, please, you have half a minute to respond because we still have 2 people online that want to raise questions, and I want to prioritize online participants. I mean, never to make them feel, in fact, they should not be disadvantaged. Okay, rather people inside should be disadvantaged. You see me here. So, Christian, have a minute to respond. More questions are on the way.
Yeah. Now, just to again reinforce the fact that we're all learning. There are many moving parts, and we learn from the experiences of others, whether it is a success or failure. And when something is working or has failed, we need to understand where the problem was and where the success factors are, and adopt these as good practices elsewhere. So, it's been 10 years, and the technology is changing all the time. So it's improving. We're able to do a lot more things. The lady mentioned about how are we able to get the technologies to the population, the users, and we have seen now, and we'll see later in terms of the models of using digital technologies, but having a human interface closer to the ground to do the interaction. But with COVID also, we've seen that people were forced to adopt digital technologies, which I think we should not lose sight of and continue promoting that. Yeah, I think I'll just stop at this level.
I'm going to take Muritala Badmosi and Kundayo Afolabi. But before I take them, to you and to Adam, you know, you've used jargon that we are so used to, but we don't know the meaning and we don't know the difference. Can both of you think, what is a framework? Okay? I mean, don't confuse me with synonyms that we don't know the difference. What's a framework? How is a framework different from an action plan? And how are the two different from a strategy? Someone raised a question for Adam, and you said you are still trying a framework, suggesting to me that a framework is not practical. Maybe for a framework, you need to do the proof. Oh, then you use the word concept. I mean, when next you have opportunity to explain, please clarify for these trainers. What's the difference between all these technical jargon and what it implies, so that we use the right terminology. Muritala Mohammed, please quickly have a minute to raise your question, followed by Ekundayo, followed by Ida, and followed by Sheramasara. Please, let's do it quickly because of our time. Let's do it quickly because of our
Hello. Thank you very much for that inspiring session. My question is straightforward, looking at issues relating to leadership thought leadership that was earlier presented in the course of the presentation. I want to suggest that while we are looking at climate risks in terms of the knowledge base that we are looking, Is it possible that, or perhaps who directs the farmer in participating in DCAS? Who directs the farmer directly? And how do we bundle it in such a way that at the end of the day, who pay for the services? Is it the farmer or perhaps through any other business model? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. Prof, am I permitted to speak? Hello, Prof.
You have the floor, please. Go ahead.
Okay. My own question was earlier for Dr. Olu, where I raised my hand and I was not given the opportunity, but I think it's very crucial for me to raise the question. He talked about the e-advisory services. So I don't know what are the mechanisms they put in place to be able to actualize the e-services, because I know in many countries there are advisory services. Are they linking up with those organizations as well? Thank you very much.
Frejos, please be quick, Frejos. And if it's not there, the next person. Okay, Frejos, you're coming on. If Frejos is not coming online, Shreya Masara. Shreyam Sara. Yeah, please. Yeah, please. There is internet challenge with both of them. The hands are on. But if we can take you, please type your questions in the chat and then we can take them later. I wouldn't know who is, okay, Eja is on now. Eda.
Yes. Hello.
You have the floor, please.
Yes. You know, in some rural areas, there are some farmers who don't even have a phone. How can we make this digital agriculture more attractive to these farmers?
Taking. So let's take the last questions and we'll move on. It's not also coming in. Abubakar, you are just Abubakar Rabiu. So if you can quickly raise your question, then we'll be very fine. Time is not on our side. We need to move on. Abubakar Rabiu.
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Okay, please be quick.
Yes, sir. My question is, I don't know whether it's permitted, probably maybe after the presentation, because we in the research institute are working with extension workers and farmers. I don't know whether it's possible for us to digest in such a way that the end users, which is the farmers, will also understand. Because it's like the presentation, it will be for only those that are educated. Thank you very much.
So I'm so sure Dr. Lu will respond to that difficult question. Anything difficult, we pass it to the boss. Okay. So maybe Adam, Christian, you want to quickly respond to those two questions we are able to take for this session. Please be very quick. Then Dr. Lu comes up to round it up.
Yeah, for me, I've not heard the questions well, but I'll respond to your question about framework concept. So it's just what I meant by that is it's a guide, it's a tool, maybe a simple word. So the framework that we have is a guide, it's a tool for the practical things to happen on the ground. So yeah, it's not the actual thing, but it's a guide. Maybe that's better to explain the concept or the framework that we have. The other question that I think I heard was, if a farmer doesn't have a phone, how do we expect the farmer to benefit from? If you look at the framework, the enabling environment part, for me, that answers that question. you need to put that enabling environment. If the farmer is not literate, that's another question. How do you expect the farmer to? You need to build the capacity. For the tool, you don't expect, GCA to come and buy handsets for the farmer to be able to do it. If the farmer is not able to buy his or her own handset, then that means that farmer cannot benefit from these services. So we need to get to that level where the user is able to have that device to be able to benefit. If the farmer has the device and is not literate, then, the farmer line can tell you they have, local languages, IVR, voice message in local languages that you can hear, and if you can read text message. So there are a number of things at the bottom, the base, that need to be put in place for the pillar 1, 2, 3 to work. So I'll end it over there. Hand over to Christian.
But when next I see you, I will query you very well. So Christian.
Yes. So I said good. So the issue of framework is interesting because what Ben presented was a framework looking at it from the technological perspective. What I presented was a framework that is looking at this from the societal perspective. And just like any framework is meant to be for us to understand how we need to work together. But the final piece that is inside, so when you're building a house, you always have a frame around it before you build the inside. So it's the same thing here. We are trying to achieve something. We don't know exactly what the final shape is, but as we're experimenting with the frameworks, we are getting a better understanding of how we need to put the pieces together to get the right product. So, and when you think about digital climate advisory services, you're bringing digital, you're bringing climate, you're bringing advisory services in agriculture together in one. So 3 disciplines merging into one. There is no solution. There's no ready-made solution, and the situation changes and it's very dynamic. That we may never be able to find a solution that we can propose off the shelf. So the best way is to understand the framework and adapt the framework to the local context, where you have a bit more control, and eventually you might be able to find the solutions that are relevant to the local context. But you cannot wait for the global system to tell you what to do at the local level. And
Okay.
That's my submission.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christian. Dr. Olu, you can use your microphone to respond to all these difficult things and the question that Adam escaped. When we use framework, we use action plan, we use strategy. It appears to me that these are just theoretical things. Should we continue to use this? For how long are we going to just be theoretical in Africa and expect that all these theoretical instruments will translate to action? Please, I want to put you on the hot seat, proper hot, but respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for putting me on the hot seat. I thought it's cold here, but now you're bringing it. Yeah, okay. Actually, I think it should have been better if you have heard it from the horse's mouth, from Adam. But let me just say that our approach is, we've had so many terminologies, but the question is, how do we ensure these things get down to the farmers? That's our focus, and that's what we do in GCA. That's why we are saying GCA is a solutions broker. We know about the challenges. So how do we get to the last mile? And one of the things we're trying to do here, so I'm answering the third question, which says, how do we pass on these things to the farmers? Yes, we are very much concerned about that. And one of the things we are doing is, we are looking for, we're talking of training of trainers. We expect that at the end, many people here who come from extension, some who come from Ministry of Agriculture or Livestock, and others who come from universities, who interact with farmers or research institutes, who go out to the farmers there, should be able to bring some elements of this one to these farmers. So we also brought a lot of people who are from the farmers organization themselves. ROPA, some of them are, ROPA is the French acronym for the West African Farmers Organization. These are real people who are dealing with farmers, so we brought them here to get this training so that they can pass on this message and to the farmers. So yes, that's our focus. well, technologies are, terminologies are good, but that's not the focus. Our focus is how do we reach out to the last mile? Because our ultimate is this. Now, second, somebody asked a question about the e-advisory services. Are we linking up with specific organizations? Very much. The answer is, simple answer is yes. We are doing that in the 4 countries, and already we're going to the field with our partners to find out who are the key players in this sector. What is their strength? What can they do? Are there synergies between them? And what can each of them, individually as an organization or as a group, what can they do to ensure that this thing gets out? So that's one of the things we'll be doing in the feasibility studies that we're carrying out, and then designing. It's going to be co-design between these partners on the ground and GCA and, of course, the African Development Bank. So that element of ownership, because we feel if you don't involve these partners who are on the ground now, at the end, they don't feel that ownership. And when you are gone, of course, everything goes with you. So we don't want to make it just an AFDB or GCS project. We want to make it the project of people on the ground. So that's what we do. And resources are there, allocated from the project to ensure that whatever is being designed is implemented. That is that. Yeah, somebody asked a question about de-risking. Leaders of thought. Let me first apologize to, sorry, I forgot the name of the person who asked the question. Mr. Moderator did not give you the opportunity to ask me questions, not because he was trying to shield me, but he was, I think he was pressed with time. So that, yeah, he said he did not see your hand. So, but please pardon him on his behalf. I ask for to pardon him. So, yeah, now to your question, the issue of thought leadership. The basic idea behind this is how do we drive the implementation and the design of projects based on an evidence-based, sound, robust platform, by ensuring we get as much information, because they said the devil lies in the details. Don't just say climate change affects maize, but pin them down. To what extent? At what stage of the value chain? Who is affected? What is the comparison? And then when we get those details, then we can now address how do we de-risk this? And so that information that we get varies from one place to another. There's no single bullet. So that information that we get is what we use to now determine, will it be insurance? Will it be something else? Will it be policy intervention? So all those questions, those answers will come based on the information that we have gotten in this kind of thought leadership. Okay, there are different ways of de-risking. Okay, but then once I don't know it all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Olu, and many thanks to Adam and Christian. Please, of course, you are part of us, so stay online. I mean, if issues that require your expertise comes up, we like to just link up with you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Before we clap for everyone, Dr. Olu. Yeah, it is not the pause of, do you want to be a millionaire? but the pause here is, I just reflected myself. I said, at the end of it all, with all these efforts, what do we want to see? I'm not asking you to answer. The answer I have at the back of my mind may be too difficult, but it is, we want to begin to see, maybe you're giving metrics to it, 50%, 60% of the smallholder farmer use digital tool in their production, marketing, and their life, we can measurable improvement in their life by the use of digital, you get it? Digital devices. We want to see 80% of extension practitioners use digital devices in the use of their, in their activities. And many more. You know, those are maybe mid-level developmental outcomes. You get it? Maybe there are higher levels that we would like to see at the end of the day. When next you have opportunity to make intervention, I would like you to speak to that and how you want to measure it, how you want to ensure that this is done. On that note, let's give a round of applause to all the speakers and to ourselves. Now, we move into Module 1. Module 1. I want you to give prime attention to this Module 1 because there is going to be a question that will be given to you online. So if you don't have your laptop, it's a digital training. I don't expect anyone to be here without a laptop, okay, because you have to click and answer the question. Let me introduce Mr. Wolali. I think Christian has done the first level of introduction. He's a veteran, more than 10 years experience in the field. And we have chosen a young fellow because they came with the technology. We came before technology. So they should be able to appreciate it more than us. Okay, Wolali, a round of applause for him. He's our facilitator.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. I think. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? That's fine. Okay. So thank you so much. I think for me, as a trainer of trainers, we're all, equipped to, share our learning and experience. I'm only been given the opportunity to facilitate. And so a lot of the engagement will be for us to share and learn together. We have a couple of slides that we will be going through, and I think the very first one, which we'll be looking at, is Module 1, which is the introduction to the gas, service. What do we mean by digital climate advisory services? I'll share my screen and then we can start. And I would like to thank also my colleagues online, Dr. Benjamin Adom and Christian, for giving the, providing some of the technical terms, etc., which is to help us understand some of the basic things that if we're going to be training people, we're going to be thought leaders in this space, we need to also, have that and appreciate that. Sorry. Okay, so a lot of the background information has been shared, so I'll be skipping through this quite quickly. But the most important thing that we would like to achieve with this first session is to understand the concept, which is the building blocks of what we mean by digital climate advisory services. We also want to understand what digitization agriculture means, and I think Benjamin Adom has provided us quite a lot of context so we can situate it. And then also to, understand how DIGAs can contribute, digital advisory services can contribute to climate resilience. And I think when we look at a framework, Dr. Adom provided us that understanding of having those pillars contributing to how we can build resilience, and for this matter, climate resilience. And then we also want to look at how DCAS tools will be useful to the farming community. And this goes back to some of the questions that how do we take this to the, the farmers who are at the, receiving end of these challenges with climate issues. We also want to look at what are the factors that will contribute to successful implementation of these services. What are the obstacles that we are likely to face in using these tools? And also, what are some of the, you as a trainer, have you built enough confidence that you can speak to the application of these tools in applying it in your own region or your own country? Last but not least is also for us to be able to understand or list out in our own region some of the tools, services that we are seeing that we can promote. Just like Dr. Prof mentioned, we need to identify solutions, and I think Dr. Olu also mentioned that we need to know what is working in our own context, contextualize it, and then look at the various elements that will help these solutions serve farmers. So we can't just take it from somewhere and come and dump it. Then within our own context, what is working? Can we also learn it across regions? These are the essence of the learning session or the module 1, what we hope to achieve. So key questions we hope to address is that we'll look at some of the key concepts, and I think we've talked about, I'll list them out. Would like to, look at a big picture, and that has been provided already. So in your engagement, in your training, you want to, let your participants understand this is where climate or data advisory service fits within this climate discussion. So you need to really get that part, and that's why I'm listing this. So this is sort of a working document that we would use in our training of trainers when we go back to our home countries or where we come from. Why do we need data advisory services? Why is it important? And I think since morning to this time, the cases has been made, and I don't really need to emphasize, but this is what we need to address in this session, in the introductory session. The challenges, and then also the ways to get more people to benefit from it. We have a quick poll that we'd like to take, just for us to know where we're coming from. This will be useful for the group exercise. This is going to be very, participatory. So we want to make sure that we are also engaging. It's not just sitting and then receiving. So you would go to menti.com and then type in this code. It's going to ask you a question where you come from. This is to help us organize the people in the room and also in the virtual sessions to help us organize our breakout sessions and group working sessions. So please, is it okay? Can I move on? I think Christian would help also post it in the group chat for those online. Is that okay? Please go to the page and then answer those questions. We want to know the countries that are represented so we can group as well to understand some of the learnings, because we are simulating how we would do this training in our own country. So you could also look at it from the perspective of the sector that you are coming from, if you're organizing this in your own home country, etc. But this is just to help us facilitate the group discussion. The scene has been set already, but I think Africa, is the hardest hit when it comes to climate change. And I think I would encourage everyone to, and I think Olu mentioned this is the latest report that has been produced by DCSA. So please make time to read so that you have the context as to what climate is, the impact of climate change on Africa. In 2021, 2022, almost 52 million Africans suffered from issue of drought or floods. And that's 4% of our population. And this is a big problem. It's a national security problem. It's a food security problem. And we need to find ways of making sure that we are mitigating and providing resilience for our smallholder farmers. And I don't need to emphasize why smallholder farmers are critical in this, because they feed almost 70% of the population. Their work, the grains they produce is what is feeding us. And without them, basically we'll go hungry. Food systems are vulnerable. COVID taught us, but then if we don't even take that into greater account, climate change is going to worsen. And what we're seeing is that the rising temperature is resulting in reduction in yield. We have scientists developing new varieties to be more drought resistant. How do we make this information, take it further to our farmers? Extensions are playing a role, but then we also think that there's a role for digital agricultural service, and that's why we're here. But the impact of it is real. We also see a lot of, effects happening within our water. We're having floods. In Ghana, for example, we experience very, within a few couple of hours, terrible downpour, homes are worse, and it's across the whole of Africa. We're having erratic weather patterns, and these are the challenges that climate change is facing us. I'm just listing this because when you are talking to your participant audience, you need to let them appreciate and connect the dots in terms of how this is really affecting their daily lives. But then the most important thing too is that we have to plan even within this uncertainty. If we fail to plan, then it's even worse off. So it's better for us to start putting systems in place. How can we leverage on collaboration partnerships to help smallholder farmers be able to prepare against or to be able to absorb these shocks? I have some videos just to set us the scene in terms of what is happening or why climate change is real. And I think we've re-emphasized it, but just so that you're not hearing from my mouth, but then things that we can really connect to. So I don't know if we can play video 1, just so that we can.
Droughts and floods are becoming more widespread and severe, the challenge for future generations. The fact is, climate change is already hurting our ability to feed people, and the world's farmers feel it every day. Yields of key food staples like maize and wheat are declining in some of the world's most important farming areas, and droughts and floods are becoming more widespread and severe. As the world's population continues to grow from 7 billion to more than 9 billion by 2050, agricultural production will need to increase by 60%. The facts add up. Climate change is a real challenge now. Here's the good news. Efforts are already underway to help farmers adapt to change, and it's inspiring. These solutions and efforts are what we call climate smart. At 15 sites in South Asia, East Africa, and West Africa, researchers, local partners, and farmers are coming together to identify the kinds of farming practices, technology, and information sharing that are needed to deal with the effects of climate change. Meet Paramjeet Singh from Haryana, India. He's using a tool called the Green Seeker to measure the nutrients in his crops and apply the right amounts and kinds of fertilizer. The result? Healthier crops, higher yields, and he doesn't overuse his fertilizer, a major contributor to greenhouse gas buildup. In the Mekong Delta of Vietnam, rice farmers are using an irrigation technique called alternate wetting and drying. This can reduce water use by up to 30%, resulting in significant cost savings for farmers and is a lifesaver for farmers and their crops during times of drought. In West Africa's Mali, radio weather bulletins keep farmers informed so they know when to prepare their fields for planting, and farmers in India receive weather updates and timely planting advice on their mobile phones. Farmers like John Obum in Kenya are planting fruit trees to provide shade for other crops from the intense sun. Even better, John's papaya trees provide him and his family fruit, food scraps for his livestock, and wood for fuel. And Ruby Mehla is learning from new technologies that provide the latest in farming information and tips. With this information, Ruby and other women in her community are better equipped to make smart decisions in the face of climate change. Farmers around the world aren't waiting for anyone to realize climate change is happening. They know it is, and they're taking action now. Their lives and communities depend on it. They are a new kind of smart. They are climate smart. Learn more about the many different ways farmers around the world are being climate smart at our website.
Thank you so much. So we just seen why climate change is real, right? And some of the solutions and work, and we've actually heard a lot of this, and this is what GCA is doing to promote work with local partners to make sure that we are adopting innovations, leveraging digital technology. And we've heard, a lot about that. I'll move on to just the key concepts. I think I've mentioned that we need to take into account as facilitators some of the key things that since morning we've heard from the various speakers. We've heard about climate change, we heard about climate resilience, we've heard about climate advisory services. We've heard about digitization and digitalization. We've also heard about enabling, enablers for digital transformation. We've also heard about digital climate advisory services, combining climate, information, making that into a service or, an advisory information you can give to farmers. We also seen how we are combining digital tools to make that possible. So we need to know all of these concepts. These are terms or terminology that we have to be familiar with. We also heard of a digital, maybe this is first time, but we've heard about access, in terms of inclusivity, whether it's, women, youth, those who have access to mobile phones, those who do not have access. These are all things that we need to take into account. We also heard about business model. How do we make these things sustainable? These are things that we have to really keep in mind. And then sustainability and scalability. So at the end of this 2-day session, we will be introducing these concepts and we'll also be trying our hands on them to help us appreciate and understand how to use them in our own facilitation, and also how we can come out with tools that can help in developing digital climate, advisory services in our own regions and country. I'll just put this, I'll run through this, but this is just a definition that is being provided by GSA about, in terms of what climate resilience is. I just provided some key terms, and when you have access to the slide, you can look at it. But the important thing here we need to know is that it's about ability to successfully prepare, recover from, and adapt to the impact of climate change while preventing those impacts from growing worse. So that's what climate resilience means. And it involves all the steps, processes that you have to go through, the practices you need to put in place, the structures. If you go back to what Dr. Benadum was describing in terms of the, transforming, agriculture, you see there are various components. There are pillars which are going to support, one of which is the digital, one of which is the data infrastructure. These are all things that needs to be part of that process. We also heard of digitalization and digitization. You have access to this slide, so you can read this technical definition. I wouldn't want us to, spend so much time, but then the most important thing that if we live here with is we know that digitization is turning from, analog to digital, all right, which is if you take a picture of yourself, that is using your mobile phone, that is digitizing, right? You have digitized the picture or your face. But if you are processing it using machine learning, which is an AI, to understand what is a problem. Let's say, for example, in the video we showed, a gentleman was holding a device to check the nutrients in the leaves of the tree. What is happening is that there's digitization, but then there's digitalization also happening there. They are analyzing the information in the leaf from the picture to make sense of it, to provide an advice to the farmer what they should do. So we need to look at it within that context. Then we come to what digital climate informed or digital advisory services is all about. And it's, a spectrum of tools, of platforms, of activities. So it's not just, using mobile phones. Radio also serves a role because radio is also digital in a sense. So various, tools, platforms, activities that we use to disseminate information, climate information, and help individuals, organizations make, climate resilient decision. That is what we're looking at as digital advice services. And this is what we want to promote because we know the power of technology, digitization. Africa is if you take, for example, from GSMA, the mobile phone penetration across Africa is huge. If you take every household in Africa, Ghana as a case, there is a mobile phone. So what it means is that you can reach them with some information. And that's the power that technology we would want to leverage to extend services to them. We've gone through this, so I don't need to really explain this particular slide. Ben did quite a good justice to it, but the important thing that I would like us to focus here is we are going to be looking at the digital innovation component, the digital pillar, the digital innovation pillar, but then the digital solutions where digital climate advisory services fit, because that's one element of it. So we need to think about it. And going back to what Christian said, we need to think broader when we are also looking at the solutions that we have to. So it's not just, being very narrow, but then as part of our training, we need to expose our participants to the various, ecosystem, the entire broad spectrum, but then also look at it within the perspective of how does this fit into what is applicable in my region or in a particular community. All right, I'll spend some time here because this is very important. This is where we are going to narrow our conversation. Within the digital solutions, there are various use cases. And within the use cases, digital advisory services fit under the access to the services sub cases. And in there we have climate. So if you look at this side, we have weather and climate services. And then we also have data-driven agricultural service, which is very synonymous to what we are talking about as digital climate advisory services. So within this block here, where you have various digital services, so you have ag services, VAS, so these are, for example, sending information, market information to farmers, etc. They all fit under this. We have smart advisory, so gaps practices. All of these are advisory services, but how do you make them climate, resilient? Applying climate data to them to make sure that it is helping position the farmer to be climate resilient. We have weather, we have pests and diseases, we have product verification, we have record management. These are all type of digital advisory services. And then we have also the digital financial services. And in there you have credit, loans, input financing, credit financing. And these are all sub use cases that is possible. And as we move along, you understand that there is a convergence of just providing advisory information and then bundled services. And these are things that we're seeing happening, sort of the two extremes in terms of just providing information, but then also bundling it with other, whether it's inputs, whether it is, access to loan, or you go to a bank facility and they want to ensure, making sure that they are covering that. These are the trends we're seeing, and we'll be looking at that as well as we move along. But we need to position this in the framework that there are various components when you come to digital agriculture, and there are use cases that apply. And digital advisory service is one of the sub-use cases. If you didn't hear anything at all, just understand that the digital climate advisory service is one of the sub-use cases when you're talking about digital agriculture. Okay. Now, there's a lot of information that will be throwing at you, but I just want to ask to focus on this slide. And this is talking about the value chain of, or the value process of digital advisory, creating digital advisory services. At the top, you see we have from the weather information. Currently, you may get weather information from the Meteo when they traditionally you will hear it from the television. Now we have, services available on your mobile phone. We have, radio broadcast, bulletin on WhatsApp, etc. But we need to take these information and then provide some service to it. Now it goes through a series of value addition, and that's what we should understand, that the digital climate advisory service is adding value to a climate information you have, which could be maybe we're having the potential of heavy rainfall. What does that mean to a farmer? When you take that information, which may come from a weather service, a weather meteorological agency, we need to know who is this information meant for, and this looking at it on the data processing side, the part underneath. We having set weather stations being installed across Africa, capturing weather data, and this is being used in modeling. And this has been one of the biggest challenge Africa is facing, that there aren't enough weather stations that are reporting real time for us to predict what the weather situation may look like. And so you may see that the forecast may say it's going to rain in this region, and then it doesn't happen, and you say, oh, the forecast people are not accurate. It is because infrastructure wise we haven't built enough monitoring systems that is collecting data to help us in our forecasting. And so we need to understand that for the weather or climate information to be available, it goes through a series of value additions, and this involves understanding who the user is, the observation data, which is capturing the data that is coming from either the soil moisture, rainfall data, wind, pressure. All those information are put in models, and then that helps meteorologists to forecast. Now, when that forecast is done, one way they disseminate is on television and come and say what the forecast would look like, what the temperature would look like. Beyond that, there are also services where you are co-creating. So now we have services where that forecast is localized and can be delivered through other partnerships. For example, with agri-techs, companies that are delivering forecasts in SMS, for example, or are delivering forecasts in the local language to farmers. So these are the co-creation processes. Others are taking these same services and then integrating them into insurance products, because they need to know what the forecast is, and then that informs insurance service or product that they can offer to farmers to cushion them against likely bad effects of the weather. You take, for example, index-based insurance. Depending on the threshold, payouts are made to farmers, and these are part of the value addition process. Now, all that is just talking about service production, right? Now, you take that information and then you have maybe an input dealer or an input company saying that because they know farmers are investing their money, they want them to save their investment, and so they would partner with a weather insurance company and incorporate it in their service. So when a farmer goes to buy an input, they already are covered for the service. These are the trends that we've seen, and so we need to put this in perspective. Now, along this chain, there is the need for us to make sure that the users are making informed decisions and are taking action. And we are also measuring what the outcomes are. And this goes back to, I think, Prof's question to Dr. Lu, that what do we want to see, all right? And these are things that we need to institute in our planning of digital advisory service. So it's not an afterthought, but we are instituting it from the background, and we are evaluating what these services are offering to farmers. How is it helping farmers to be more resilient? We will see that these are some of the success factors that would ensure that these services are adopted, or even private sector, actors would contribute to it, or take these innovations and take them to scale. So this is just to explain in brief that when we talk about digital advisory services, it involves a process of value addition from when data is captured, whether it is temperature recordings, whether it is rainfall recordings, all the way till it gets into the final beneficiary, who is a farmer or other actors who leverage on that service to, bundle it with their own products and services. But importantly is that it's a continuous loop of monitoring, evaluating, and learning, so that when things don't work well, we learn from those mistakes and then move forward. And that forms part of the whole discussions. GCA provided some core principles, and this will be treating later in, I think, Module 3. So we'll be going into more detail what these principles are. So we have one on data quality and assurance, and this is very important. We need to be sure that the data that is being captured is of high quality. In the technology, we have a term called garbage in, garbage out. So if you put in fake data, you get fake results. But we need to make sure that to create transparency and trust, we need to make sure that the data that is being captured is of high quality. And I think in Benjamin's, the framework that he presented, there's an element of user data. Do we know the exact location of how can we get the exact location of the farmer? All these things are important in ensuring that there is assurance that the service that we are offering is of high quality and results in the benefits we want to see. The other principle that we'll also look at is equity. We're talking about digital. We know that there are some people who may have means to access these digital tools, whether it's true because they are well-to-do, they have a phone, or they have some asset which allows them to access. We also look at issue of cultural, context, where maybe women are not allowed to have some devices or assets. It's actually with a man. How do they get this information? All these things need to be taken into account, that there is an element of, or we need to look at when we are promoting these digital advisory services, we are taking into account the element of equity in access to this information. So issue of our gender, issue of our youth, etc., indigenous people, we need to take all these into account. There's a strong element about co-create and stakeholder engagement. And this is really important. If we really want to make sure that the services go beyond just the pilot phase, we need to identify key stakeholders that are important from the word go, and that they have an interest. It's not that we do, it and then, the result is good, and then we want to engage them. The likelihood of it succeeding is very limited. And then also establishing accountability and transparency. These are all means of ensuring that when we abide by this principle, there is transparency in what is working, what is not working. And so when a donor is investing into something, he knows that this is worth it. They want $1, how much was the return on investment? We need to be accountable. So it's not just, business as usual. And then building for financial sustainability. And this is very important. I think there was a question asked about what are some of the examples. We need to showcase what success, what financial sustainability means. But it means that you have to think critically, what does that mean when you're designing or when you are trying to implement a digital advisory service. So these are concepts we'll be looking at. And then also designing for scale. There are various elements. We notice some innovations are very good, high impact, but then they can't scale. What can we do to make sure that we are helping these digital advisory services become more, scalable in communities? And we'll be looking at all of this as we move through the modules. I think we can also skip that. But just to highlight for us, one key thing, why we do need digital advisory services. First of all, Africa, for that matter, where majority of smallholder farmers, or in developing countries where smallholder farmers are responsible or feed the growing population. By 2050, we're expecting to be 10 billion. We need to make sure that they get the right, support to continue feeding us. One of the biggest return on investment is that there's increase in yield and income. As we already noticing, climate change is affecting yield. We are asking for intensification of our production systems, etc. If we want to really limit the impact of climate change on our environment, we need to see how best these solutions can help. And one of the key areas that Digital Advisory Service can help smallholder farmers is in the area of their yield and income. Because one, at least a number of research examples have shown, and when you look at your handouts, you see some of these use cases where productivity is increasing between 7 to 38% in terms of productivity gain. And then also incomes increasing between 7 to 100% because they have benefited from these climate solutions. It also reduces risk, and I think that's one question that came. How do we mitigate? How do we reduce the risk? And this is one of the benefits that farmers, because then they know that come what may, even in bad weather, insured in some form. Because one, I have the right information that I can plant early maturing crop varieties, which will help me, take advantage of a short weather season, and also help me to, escape issues of pests and diseases. So those are the potential benefits that smallholder farmers receive as a result of digital advisory services. Input efficiency. We have a big challenge of, on one side, the cost of inputs. And I'm sure we know the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war on the input cost. In Ghana, it's, I think since COVID, pre-pandemic to this year, prices of inputs have gone up about 200%. And we need to find ways of making or using digital advice can help them to be more efficient. And last but not least is also the knowledge and then empowerment that we give to these farmers to take decisions on their own. You and I have the opportunity to make informed decisions because we can access resources that can help us. We also want our farmers to be in that position, to be businessmen and take more rational decisions. So this is these are some of the benefits that we see, and we can communicate these very clearly to our farmers or participants that we're going to train. I think Christian and Dr. Lu mentioned this, and the reason why we're focusing on if you take West Africa, for example, if you take Nigeria and Ghana, you can see the extension to farmer ratio. It is very high. And government support to agriculture is declining in terms of budget allocation. So if we really want to help farmers, we need to find cost-effective ways, and technology offers one of that approach. And one of the support means to do that is using digital advisors. So there is a big case to make that if we want productivity to increase, we need to make sure that we are finding solutions that create value for farmers. At a sectoral level, we see that, and this is the big picture, the economy benefits in terms of increased GDP, because one, the country become more food sufficient, you do less of imports, prices are more stable, etc., etc. If you're into exports, you earn more forex. All of those things benefit the economy because you are taking more resilient, or climate smart approaches. The other one also is regards to the return of investment. GCA is not doing this because it is just fun, because they know the importance of it, and that if we want to see a global, a world that is resilient, we need to put in, or there's a need for financing. And that's why the COP, 27, a lot of pledges have been made in terms of, supporting funding towards climate resilient solutions. How do we make our agriculture more resilient? And stakeholders are asking for return on investment. And the way we can do this is making sure that we are innovating and thinking very critically services that we are going to propose to help our farmers in this area. And so cost benefits analysis is very important. So at the end of the day, you are not innovating or proposing very, nice ideas, but then in terms of cost benefit doesn't make sense. And for which reason it's not sustainable, and then it can be scaled as well. So these are things that we are looking at. And a lot of research is showing that when you invest in these solutions, well thought out, the return on investment for agriculture is way higher. And this is why we need to look at them very critically. So I would want to ask from the, this is something that has come through literature in terms of what are some of the challenges. And I'm going through, I'll try and go through this quickly because in our group work, we'll be looking at some of these things in our own regions. Yeah. The main thing is, what are the challenges in assessing or using digital advisory services? I think one of the biggest problem which literature we found, and this is also available in some of the text, is a lack of consistency in standards for data and validations. We're seeing that everybody's doing their own thing. There isn't harmonized systems in place. And so we are not even able to talk, or within regions, they are not able to share information. There's also an issue of equitable access and non-use of these services. So the digital advice services that are being introduced, some of them are not accessible to people who really need it, either because the way that they are being made available excludes others. And so we need to think through these challenges when we are proposing or when we're teaching, whether in our organizations, etc. How do we make this very equitable? Looking at the supply and demand fit. There's a lot of asks, how can we provide climate smart? And so we just go supply. Okay, are we listening to what farmers are asking? What services do these farmers really need? Budget and timelines for some of these things. We may spend time implementing, designing, thinking through all of them, but then when we want to really apply, and I love my sister's question that, what are we doing right now with the challenges? These are some of the things that we need to look at. Okay, practically, immediately, what is possible? And then long term, what can we do? These are some of the things that we need to take into account, that we are aligning the current challenges as well as the long-term issues. Element of monitoring, learning, and evaluation, I've already stressed that if we don't factor them, the use of these digital services will not work. And then the climate, lack of digital readiness. And this is something that we're seeing either at the country level where there's lack of infrastructure, for example, mobile coverage, and so, or the digital literacy of the end users is not, they are not digitally literate, and so they can't access some of these tools. Also, some of the things that have come up in literature is the fact that some of the providers of these digital advisory services are not transparent with their processes. So they, want to protect what it is that I'm offering, but when we open up and share standards, it offers better support for us to adopt these tools. And then also private sector is also not incentivized enough to be engaged. Climate issues require a lot of investment, all right? But then we need to also make sure that we are providing incentive for the private sector, be it young entrepreneurs who are innovating and developing solutions, or businesses that are offering input support, market access, etc., to farmers in this agri-food system we need to find ways of engaging them so that beyond the project, the service is still sustainable and scalable. How or which ways can we benefit? I'm just highlighting this so that we understand, and when we go into our various groups, we can also think through in your own region what you see, because we are all experts in our own right, and we need to share lessons and experience to help us, learn, because one of the big things that GCA wants to promote is thought leadership within a community that can drive this. And so one of the key things we're looking at is here in terms of promoting better and more use of digital advisory services is how, data, climate and data related, can be made available either through nationalized or regional digital systems, applying them to specific use cases, and then also making them available at a farm level, so that if you're going to send a climate advice to a farmer, they can use it. You don't tell a farmer that there'll be 5 millimeters of rainfall. I mean, that doesn't make sense to the farmer. But if you tell the farmer that, for example, it's going to be there's going to be a heavy rainstorm, that gives them some perspective, and so they can plan their activities. So we need to really make sure that we're taking this information way down to their understanding. We also need to look at very sustainable business model. Can we partner with, existing infrastructure, maybe mobile operators, agri-tech providers, platforms that are already delivering services like this, to make sure that the innovations we have can move closer to smallholder farmers. The last one, which is not least, is also, and I think Ben alluded to that, regionally, how do we challenge ourselves? That we're creating index to measure how, let's say, Ghana is doing, not just the quantum of innovations that are coming from the country, but then how this is also translating into better, innovations around access, the, educational institutions, how are these all being factored into in a given country context. I would end here. I think when we come back from break, there's a case study here that we will look at, and then we'll go into our group sessions to do some practical work within our region. This is just to set the stage, and we can go into more detail in the afternoon. I don't know if there are any questions.
Yeah, Wulali, I think you need to come and join us in the classroom for you to. One course is 15 hours, and you have actually delivered. Thank you very much for that. I believe you're listening and you followed. Hello? Yeah. And you followed very well. I'm so sure Wulali is going to give us this PowerPoint for further reflection and to see. Yeah, he called it setting the scene, but this presentation actually raised a lot of issues that we need to interrogate ourselves on preparedness of our country and sub-region for this digital transformation. It has to. So let's interrogate this with our questions, comments, and the issues. I haven't listened. What are the things that you need clarification on, or your personal curiosity, and you just want to know more, So if you, participant online, please also, you feel very free to raise your hand, to raise your question. Please, can you give me the Zoom in such a way that I can see participants and their hands? Okay, you can stop sharing. Yeah. Okay. The hands are so many on there. And in the audience. Okay, let me see the hands. One. Oh, yes, Mami. 2, 3. 3. Okay, I want more hands in the audience. You know why? You have an advantage. And so we are going to make the number of times you commented as part of this evaluation criteria. So if you have come to sit down as if you are having your quiet time here, huh? out on a scale out of 10 marks for participation, you score 0. Okay, so that's it. So I've seen 1, 2. I think I got 2 hands in the audience, but a number of hands are there. Oh, okay. I see Oyibe Eima. I see Morufu Abiola. Oyibe, is that Professor Oyibe of ABU Zaria? If you're the one, you have the floor to raise your question now. Then followed by Morufu. Are you there? Oyibe?
Thank you.
Yes, I see that you are speaking, but speak loud so that we can hear you in the audience.
Hear you in the audience. Can you hear me now? Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My concern really is how prepared are we for the transition to the digital work itself, and then given the erratic, or like call it poor communication, will I say instability in communication services also that are currently going on. Are we prepared? How prepared, and how can we potentially accelerate the process of preparedness? And that's one. The second part is the component of inclusiveness. As it is currently, some of what is available in rural community, the phones and so on, you know, the nature of phone is not, they are not particularly the Androids that we find in many of the farming communities. Are there ways of circumventing the use of these communication tools that are not as sophisticated?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Oyibe. I mean, that is noted. I'm happy that there are more hands online. Morufu Abiola, Dr. Morufu, can you take off the floor or mute yourself and post your questions or comment or curiosity?
Thank you very much, moderator. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Hello?
Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm Hello. I'm worried about getting this information to
Mutatedness. Huh? Something is just muting you. So unmute yourself. IT, please, can we help him? Centrally unmute my roof. Okay. Well, if you are not getting him unmuted, can we move then to Idris, Alaji Idris? Idris, are you there? Are you there? Okay, Idris Yuguda is not also there. Okay, Dr. Adramigba Vincent, please, you can unmute yourself and post your question, comment. Yeah, IT, are you the one muting? Oh, is there? So, okay, Buhari Abibu, can you post your question?
Hello? Yes, I've been unmuted. No. Hello.
Okay, while we wait for IT in-house to get back to action, let's take the comment in. But we cannot hear them. But we cannot hear them. But we cannot hear them.
Kini fara training gan. Àṣẹ wọn ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti bí ẹlẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lọ́dọ̀ sí.
Okay, now you have the floor. Please, one.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, merci. Merci beaucoup. Please, the audio of the microphone, please release it.
Ok, merci MC.
Yeah.
Depuis le matin, je pense qu'on parle de deux thématiques, numérisation et digitalisation. Je pense que les défis, ils sont nombreux, mais la question qui me revient ici, c'est de savoir, pour faire la numérisation ou la digitalisation, il faut disposer des données. Et je pense que le formateur en a parlé tout à l'heure. La question, qui crée la donnée? Comment on obtient la donnée pour alimenter ces différentes plateformes, notamment les plateformes de digitalisation, et qui supportent le coût? Parce que, in fine, les petits producteurs dont on parle ici, eux, ils ont besoin de services. Et tous ces services-là doivent être développés en amont, mais qui génèrent énormément de coûts. Et aujourd'hui, je ne sais pas si c'est le cas dans d'autres pays, en Côte d'Ivoire, lorsqu'on parle de données, les experts en météorologie nous parlent de 30 années de données disponibles pour pouvoir faire des prévisions assez correctes. Donc, vous voyez un peu le challenge que nos organisations agricoles ont, non seulement où trouver les 30 années de données qui ne sont pas souvent, je vais dire, disponibles du fait d'un certain nombre de facteurs dans nos différents pays, inexistence des instruments, des stations météorologiques, ou bien des données qui ont été détruites à la faveur de tel ou tel événement. Donc aujourd'hui, je me demande, avec le soutien du DCSA qui est là, comme vous l'avez dit, Dr Olou, il aura beaucoup de questions à répondre. Comment faire le mix entre disposer de la donnée pour alimenter ces plateformes de digitalisation et les mettre à la disposition des petits producteurs de façon assez accessible. Quand je parle d'accessibilité, à un coût vraiment, je veux dire, moindre, qui pourrait être supporté par ces petits producteurs-là.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wolali, did you listen to that? It's you and Dr. Olu that can respond to those very difficult questions. They are sectoral questions, and these are intrinsic constraints in our agriculture and development system. Data, you know, the cost of data, and you know, the way we also hold this data. You know, even many times when we generated the data from public funding, we still hold it very tight until they become obsolete. I mean, well, you will be able to respond to that. Yes, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, number 2.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Peut-être attirer l'attention des présentateurs, mais aussi des participants sur l'implication des éleveurs dans ces outils-là. Parce qu'on sait qu'au niveau de la sous-région, en termes de données, d'informations et d'outils, les éleveurs sont les moins informés. Ils ne sont pas outillés en termes d'informations, ils ne reçoivent rien, presque. Parce qu'il y a des informations qui sont communes avec le secteur, les agriculteurs, mais il y a des informations qui sont spécifiques aux éleveurs. Et en termes d'informations et d'outils, c'est eux qui sont les moins, comment dirais-je, servi. Donc, attirer l'attention. C'est l'occasion quand même de corriger ce gap avec ces nouvelles technologies pour une meilleure prise en compte de cette couche-là, qui sont les moins servis en termes d'information et d'outils. Je vous remercie.
Okay, that is noted, the livestock issues. I think we should be able to respond to that. Number 3.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Francis Nguru. I would like to bring just a question to the presenter, and this is in terms of what really defines a digital climate platform or solution. You brought to our attention an example on where an Indian farmer will check on the leaves, will use a picture, check on the leaves and see what nutrients are available or which needs to be added into the plants. But if he's to put in a solution which is harmful to the environment, then was it really a climate smart solution? And I think that's that definition of what really is a digital climate solution needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Yeah, that's well noted. That's number 3. Number 4. Yes, I've seen your hand. Are you number 4?
Number 4.
I think I should be number 3.
Okay. Okay, go ahead then.
Okay, thank you. I'm Samuel Awuni from Joseph Ayo Popular University, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Dr. Sanyo, for your presentation. I have a concern rather about what you spoke about on promoting equity or trust. I know for sure that extension agents that will be giving data to farmers will also collect data from farmers. So the issue is, how do we protect the privacy of the farmers? Number 2, what of the issue of data ownership? I'm saying this because it just needs just one person to inform the farmers that, you see, these people are ripping you off. The data they are collecting from you, they are making billions of dollars from it. And that will end all these efforts of getting data. Because when the farmers get to know that, they won't say anything again. Otherwise, you settle them first.
Yeah, of
so,
course.
Okay. So the issue is, and also your presentation, you didn't mention, yes, you did mention the issue of trust, but you didn't elaborate on it and how to go about it. That's number 1. Then number 2, it has to do with ethical issues when it comes to data collection, data protection, and things like that. So please, could you just elaborate on how we had to go about that when the time comes? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising that question. In fact, most of the farmers in our benchmark site, they are already at that point where they ask you to give incentives before they respond to you. And many times the responses are also false that you can see. So when we develop our questionnaire and we encourage them to respond to it, we have questions to validate other questions, Koniman die, Koniman bury. So number 5 now, is that?
Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Benjamin Fiafo, working with Farm Radio International. With the presentation, I just want to say that as we will be going out, a question that keep coming is examples, credible examples that we can share as a way of proof that this works. If there are some examples, I'll be very happy if that can also be shared with us. My main question is about the guiding principles for implementation. You mentioned that there is a need for the use of existing infrastructure or the possible collaborations. From the little experience I have so far, it is very, very difficult for example, the agri-techs to come together or to agree to partner on a given initiative. Anytime they come together, everybody is either keeping silence on his or her own technology because of the fear that the ideas will be
stolen. How can we get over this when we need to implement faster? And this can happen if we come together or we leverage on existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, number 6. Number 6, are you number 6? Then go ahead.
Merci. Donc moi, je m'appelle Mme Fatou du service régional de l'élevage et des productions animales de Fatick. Donc je pense que les agriculteurs avec grand A, ils sont plus que conscients quand même des changements climatiques. Et avec ces difficultés que nous vivons, je pense que nous avons besoin de l'information très rapidement. Donc je pense que c'est ça qui explique quand même qu'on utilise la digitalisation pour que ces acteurs-là, les acteurs finaux, puissent avoir l'information et agir à temps. Je pense que c'est pourquoi nous pensons un peu à cette numérisation-là. Et ces données-là, si je comprends bien, c'est des données qui ne changent pas, qui sont là, qu'on a prouvé techniquement et que l'utilisateur final doit avoir pour prendre les dispositions. Et nous, au niveau local, nous travaillons avec des groupes de travail pluridisciplinaires. On se regroupe chaque 10 jours pour faire une information de façon décadente. Et pour ces informations-là, l'agriculture comme l'élevage, et même ces éleveurs-là, ils viennent pour chercher l'information. Et moi, je pense que même s'ils n'ont pas ces téléphones portables-là pour partager l'information, la presse locale est toujours là. Et la presse locale a plus même besoin de ces informations pour relayer au niveau communautaire avec les radios communautaires. Donc, je pense que le problème n'est pas compliqué parce que l'éleveur, l'information qu'il reçoit est très simple. Demain, il y aura beaucoup de pluie, il faut se préparer. Donc, c'est vraiment quelque chose qui est là et qui est dynamique, qui change d'un jour à l'autre. Donc, je pense que comme nous devons aussi réfléchir comment faire pour valoriser cela, si le téléphone portable n'est pas accessible, renforcer les radios communautaires pour que l'information soit relayée. Donc, c'est juste ça que je voulais, une suggestion que je voulais ajouter par rapport à la discussion. Merci.
Much for that good comment. Number 7, number 8. Yeah, you are number 7, number 8, number 9. Okay, go ahead. Quick.
Merci beaucoup, MC. Dans ma position de quelqu'un qui doit former, je suis Mbra Armand, je suis de la Côte d'Ivoire, du FICA. De quelqu'un qui doit former plus tard d'autres personnes, je m'interroge un peu sur la fiabilité des plateformes. À qui appartiennent ces plateformes-là et puis qui garantit leur fiabilité? On a parlé de solutions informatiques, solutions digitales. On doit les alimenter avec des données, mais qui est-ce qui est garant de ces solutions-là? C'est un peu ma question, ma préoccupation.
Okay, thank you. My name is Abubakar Abulkader. I'm a citizen of 2 sectoral worlds, one academic and the other private sector. My question is on techno-pessimism that we are dealing with, particularly at the local level with smallholder farmers. Techno-pessimism in the sense of rejecting technology and a kind of pessimistic behaviors toward accepting this technology at the local level, especially biotechnological products. Not the digital technology, we don't actually see much issues with its acceptance, hesitancy, and so on, but with biotechnological products, pesticides, and improved seeds, which will actually help in boosting agri-productivity in terms of produce. How do you think we can actually get along with this, and particularly looking at the solutions to these problems? Because currently, these harvesting season in northern fringes of Nigeria we are dealing with. We're actually kind of accounting for huge losses, harvest losses of rice, because farmers have stocked their seeds from the previous season, farming season, and planting it. And unfortunately, we had issues of flood, yes, throughout northwest Nigeria this 2022. And unfortunately, we are accounting for huge losses. I believe we will come up with the indicators in terms of the survey of how much loss we are having, because these people have rejected improved seeds that are actually out there, some from even IITA and others. So techno pessimism, particularly biotechnology, is the problem we're dealing with. How do you think we can address that? Thank you.
Able to respond to that accurately. Yeah, techno-pessimism is a lot. Social movement is stronger in our world than facts and figure. And that is because people like you and me with facts and figure, we only publish it in journals. Social movement use social media, and people get convinced with that because they reach many people and they believe it. You know, bad news sells more than good one. That's my opinion. Dr. Lu will give us technical facts. So I think your hand is on, and we close it there. Yeah, we go back online if anyone is there before we respond. Short respond. Please be quick, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I just want to think about how do we include literacy and numeracy in this whole program. Looking at the farmers level, there are some farmers who could write their data on the walls of their stores and also papers in Arabic or in the language that they can speak. So I don't know, I think it's important that we are trained on how to use it on the farmers, and also how the countries that are using literacy and numeracy programs to include it in whatever they are doing. For example, the Gambia and the Senegal, they have languages written in Wolof, Mandinka, and other local languages that they are using. I don't know how best we can include this in this program. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all. Oh, one hand, okay. Lady, please quickly come on.
Okay, my name is Marilyn Yabra from CSIR Step B. My question is, I don't know if it's a problem or a question. How ready are we? Looking at us here today, even internet in this Accra, it's a problem. How more people in the rural areas? And most of these things, we are going to use these internet services. Are they ready to pay for it? Or are we paying for them? That's my question. Thank you.
Yes. I want to go online again, and I wouldn't know if I saw many great individuals who raised their hand initially, and their hand is no longer on. Vincent Adura Migba, are you still there? Usman Angara, your hand is on. Abubakar Rabiu, please. Usman, quickly. It appears network is failing us this time. Usman?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, Abubakar.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Quickly, I want to raise this concern in the area of advisory services that has to do with digitalization. Recently, I just want to share an experience with the research we just conducted recently on the flood assessment in Nigeria. Sorry, first of all, my name is Usman Angara. I'm working for National Agricultural Extension and Research License Services in Ebi area. And there's this concern of having an advisory services that is location specific. We just conducted the flood assessment where farmers are raising and that actually they have received an information on weather situation but they are not sure if it is specific to their location. So some of these digital solutions and advisory services, how can we ensure that we are reaching the farmers using the precision and at the same time specific locations? That's my concern. Thank you.
Take Rabiu now and others that are raising, Mary Idu, and others that are raising their hand. But I want to encourage Dr. Olu, Wolali, Christian, Adam. So people are typing their questions online. I keep coming in. So please respond to questions online.
Okay, my question, I typed it. It's about the ownership of inventions or innovations or even indigenous knowledge. And with this digitalization that we observed that the need is very urgent, really there are many inventions developed. I work on fertilizer and soil fertility, and we have some developed fertilizers, but yet to be patented. So I could see how can we incorporate patency, promoting patency into this program so that people will be willing to release their data, or even the farmers. Farmers now, they'll tell you they have indigenous knowledge already being practiced for many years and working for them to an extent. So how are we going to ensure them that they will still claim the ownership or they will get something, you know, as for the invention or for their knowledge that we are taking from them and we are putting into digital form for many people to use, because we are looking at scaling to cover, you know, many regions and nations. So I see this as a challenge that we. So what plans do we have to overcome this? Thank you.
So good to hear your question. Okay, Abubakar Rabiu, please come on quickly, then followed by Benjamin Abu.
Two questions, but one of the questions has already been asked by Usman Angara concerning the location advisory. Then the second question is issue of adoption. I don't know whether there is going to be another way of reaching out to the farmers, whether the advisory given to them, are they adopting it or not? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope I can be heard. Okay, so just a quick one. How ready are these digital technologies to protect farmers and even the service providers from, you know, this issue of cyber attacks and all these things? For now, we know that they are just on WhatsApp and all those other things. So once we begin to develop and deploy these things, definitely they will begin to, move into all these platforms. So how ready are they to protect both farmers and the service providers from cyber attacks and all those risks associated with these things? Thank you.
The online and the physical participants. I mean, these are very rich interrogation, suggesting that the interest is very high and you followed. I'm going to give Dr. Olu and Wolali opportunity to do bulk response. You are standing between us and lunch, and we are very hungry. You know, an hungry man cannot listen. So you have to do it quickly. Okay. So Wolali, please, I leave this place for you to do a good job.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for this interactive session and the questions that have come up. I'll just try and take some of them and basically take it back to the principles that we try to talk about. And these are meant to help us create the enabling environment, which falls within the framework that Ben spoke about. Because if we can't, for example, in terms of devices that can ensure inclusion, where farmers don't have smartphones, not Android enabled, what other way can we also reach them? And like I mentioned, when we look at the, when we look at the equity conversation, how do we promote equity? Can we introduce services that does not eliminate because I don't have an Android phone, or I don't have a smartphone, or I don't have a YAM phone, but then I'm part of a community, I can still get those information. So we need to think about these things within a broader context, that digital solutions that we are recommending is not a one size fits all. We need to look at it from various angles. If you are proposing a solution in an area where there's no connectivity, you already don't have a service. So how do we look at providing services that doesn't rely on internet connectivity? For example, cost of data. We know data is very expensive, and I think when Ben was presenting, he mentioned that farmers don't need to worry about drones, the mechanism behind. But you have very innovative companies, young entrepreneurs who are working on providing services that can meet the needs of smallholders, be it a voice phone. They receive a call, and this is in their local language. So it is being translated. They don't have to worry about the technical jungles. It's very simple. So those are the things that we are trying to promote, that as thought leaders, we need to champion, we need to preach this, so that it's not a buzz that, okay, the digital, advisory service is a silver bullet, it's going to solve all our problem and create, resilient farmers or transform agriculture. But we need to understand that they are required or basic infrastructure that is needed. If it means that in your region, connectivity is a challenge, let's take, for example, the pastoral, how do we support such? Means that working through, the donor and the multinationals, we're trying to extend coverage into those remote areas so that they can receive information in real time to make informed decision. So those are some of the things that we need to take into account. So it's not just looking at it just context, local, but then also at a global level, how do we push for policy? And that's why GCA is promoting this, so that we are aware of these concerns. And when you're designing, hopefully in the afternoon, we're going to look at some of the business models using a tool that can help us think along those lines. When you're proposing a service, what infrastructure, what resources do I need to make sure that if I'm targeting a smallholder farmer in my community, I'm able to offer these services. There was also an issue about impact, the type of advice and the way it's implemented. This goes back to the issue and one of the principles, which is establishing accountability and transparency, right? We need to make sure that we are holding each other accountable, and that also, builds trust, that a farmer, will not doubt in terms of the techno, pessimism, that they would trust that indeed this is tested and approved, and the agri extension officer is able to confirm this, because in some cases they are not even aware. Right, so we need to really take this into a more holistic approach in our recommendations. Sharing examples, I think we'll be seeing some of those, and the reason why you are here is because you are experts in your own right. So we'll be listening to you, we'll be sharing some of your local examples that you see successful, so we all learn from that, and that's why we're here. So it's not just we knowing them, there are some use cases that we'll present, but more importantly is to hear from you, your country context. What have you seen is working, so that we can also share in other regions where they're also struggling to find innovations to help them, or methods that they can use to solve these problems. There was a question about cooperation and then between AgTech and digital advisory service providers. It's all about the openness. First of all, looking at it from the standpoint of how do we cooperate. I don't have the answers. All right, I have some ideas, but creating this platform opens up the opportunity for us to discuss and find a way, all right, to make sure that if there are, for example, we need data in order to offer services to farmers. We need user data. Where is a farmer located, etc. How do we leverage on government infrastructure to make this possible so that people don't, think they are competing with each other? Yeah, I'm just going through quite a number of them. Things about the location-specific assessment. It all goes back to M&E. How are we checking that the services that we're offering are accurate?
You have to stop.
Yeah, so bottom line is, if somebody is developing innovations, are they opening up? Does that provide opportunity for us to assess that these services are really creating the impact that they are mentioning? What else can we do to help improve? And that's what the learning, monitoring, learning, and evaluation helps us to achieve. I'll leave the rest to the team to. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, these issues,
Yeah, I'll make it so very short. Yeah, in terms of the idea, basic idea I see here is there is potential for DCAS or digital tools, but then there are also teaching problems and challenges, and that's what we're discussing here. So I think that's why one silver bullet cannot solve everybody's problem. So we say it has to be location specific. Now, the issue of equity and adoption came up. We strongly believe that in this, there should be a co-creation of knowledge, and that even farmers themselves who go through these challenges know much more on some of these ones. We are encouraging at level of GCA what we call reverse DCAS. That is, it's not just information flowing from the weather station or whatever to the farmers, but also getting feedback from farmers. We call it reverse DCAS, so we get feedback from farmers. What are the situations where you predicted something that is going to rain, and of course it's a miss and it didn't rain. So what are those things? So we are working on that as well. So at least we are ensure that farmers get the best. Somebody asked a question: are we paying farmers? I would say the answer is no. If farmers don't know the value about it, then it's like they want to see it demonstrated that it works before they go. We don't think it's sustainable to start paying farmers to be able to use DCAS. So when you stop paying them, of course, they will also stop. So we think that's not, we have gone through this line before, we don't want to encourage that. But let's see what are the business options and solutions or options that can ensure that this is sustainable. Of course, if it's useful for them and they see it, of course, farmers will jump along the line. Yeah, I think a very important point raised is on the property rights, and that's an issue. We're actually working, my colleague here, Dr. Ben Adam actually mentioned that it came up when we were in COP in Egypt just about a few weeks ago on how do we ensure that this data that farmers are giving out freely is not formed into big data and which now will be sold to the same farmers who gave them out freely. So these are intellectual property right issue. I mean, in other places, there's something they call GDPR, General Data Protection Rights. So what are those things to ensure farmers are protected? So that's also in the works. That has to do with policy and other issues. And so we are working on that. Yeah, my sister here asked about the one in livestock. That's very true. I don't know when it comes to agricultural food sector, people always think first of crops. Then later, oh yeah, livestock, by the way, livestock. So I think we want to change that. So, and also because not many projects are focused on livestock when it comes to climate issue. People don't see that. It's easy to see the impact of climate on maize than to see the impact of climate on livestock. But that's a kind of optics which we are hoping to change. And there are some projects now, we are working with Senegal on a project called PNDS, to focus on just impact of climate on livestock. There's one in Nigeria, but those are the few ones, but many more are coming. Okay, I stop here because he said I'm the one stopping you from lunch. So.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Olu. So, we've interrogated the first one. It's still largely general. What is this? What is this animal called the Digital Advisory Services? Are we actually ready for it? Is it, how can we foster it? Demand pull or supply push? Do we really have those who wants it? Will it trigger the type of change we want and all other constraints we have identified? Possibly in subsequent section, we should come up with solution. There is no doubt to the truth that this is what will trigger the change we need, because evidence abound in other climes in the Western world. It is driven by this digitalization, and every sector is driven by it. But Africa must get it right. And promoting it and getting the right solution lies in your hand and in my hand. Now it's time for us to go for lunch. I think the lunch is the same place where I wouldn't know, Madam Melin, do we have lunch ticket or we just walk in with our tag? Okay, so please, let's go for lunch. Let's spend our 1 full hour of lunch. By 3:15, we will start the next session. And that is going to mean like our group work, we do it quickly and we do our evaluation. For participants that are online, we encourage you to also find your lunch, go into the local restaurant, eat